Okay, I'm just waiting here. Why am I not seeing anything happen on the other end of it? There we go. It's just a little slow to react. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I probably should have muted my notifications. I bet we might get a ding or two from my phone throughout the. Oh, no, I got the headphones set and we're good.
Okay, right on. All right, we're live. Cool. All right. Hey, everyone. Glad to see. Well, I guess we got to wait a little bit there, I guess, yet to let some people join in the stream. So actually, before I do get into this, I'm just going to give Matt a chance real quick. Actually, before you even do that, Matt, because I want people to hear what you got to say, but I want to share this real quickly. I'm going to share your Twitter link here. Okay, put that down in the stream. Okay, so there's the Twitter link for Matt, and then I'm just going to do your Facebook one as well. Oh, I see you even got your own website too, eh, Matt? Actually, no, I think I remember that. So I'm going to share both of them, actually. Yeah.
Excellent. Actually, there's my video doing fun stuff again.
Actually, the Matt Southall. Okay, so you do want that shared too, your Facebook one, right?
Oh, you share everything with my name attached to it.
Right on. just want to check, make sure it's not your private one because I didn't see the PPC there. So.
Oh yes, no. We had an issue with our first website. If you go to mattsouthall.ca, it's not working. It's not a thing. So you go to matthewsouthall.ca, and that's
right.
MATHEWSOUTHALL.
All right, I'm just going to click on that right now. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay, so the notebook, trying to share that one. Okay, so let me close that. Give it a moment. Okay, so we got a few people showing up here. Steve's in the chat. What's going on, Steve? Linda, hey guys, hey everyone. Trish, hey, what's going on, Trish? Nice to see you in the chat. Plant Boy, are you going to ramble on for the next 2 hours? Probably. Hey, if you're lucky, it'll only be 2 hours, Plant Boy.
That sounds like a viewer that's seen your videos once or twice. Hey, bye.
Sounds like he's watched a couple anyways, right? Yeah. Right on. Anyway, so I'm just so I like I said, now that I see there's a few people that are in the chat, I'm going to give Matt at the time today. Like I said, I've been actually waiting to have a chat with Matt. I already put out a video probably about a month or so ago. I'll probably end up placing a link to that one in the description of the video as well. This is a young man that I say he's chosen to step up the plate to run as a candidate. He has libertarian leanings, and he's running for the PPC in the riding of Kings-Hants, I believe you call it, in Nova Scotia. And I tell you, out of all the candidates in Canada, and I got a lot of respect for all of them that are run for the PPC. So some great people from coast to coast to coast across this country that have stepped up the plate. But I've been paying particular attention to Matthew. And I mean, it's not even the fact that I'm biased by sheer fact that he comes from the East Coast, right? So it's not even just the geographic camaraderie that we have, but it's the sheer fact that I heard his responses to the questioning from the media personality from Global News. And he had a great little speech that he put there. And to me, it's like, this is a man that is very articulate in the message. He stands firm on convictions. He has those principles that are near and dear. And I guarantee you're really going to want to hear what this young man has to say. And actually, to answer Plant Boy, I'm going to try to keep myself at bay a little bit and let Matthew kind of take more control of this conversation. Because like I say, I'm pretty sure you're going to want to hear what this young man has to say. And I'm just going to let him go from here. Oh, are you okay there, Matt?
Yeah, it's just this camera is tuning in and out. I apologize to the audience. Obviously, people want to see a nice video set up, and my friend here, Bennett, Canadian Libertarian, does just that to host that. But unfortunately, I'm poor, and the equipment on my side is not so good. So we'll make do with what we can. The occasional glimpse of my face there should hopefully suffice.
Well, I'll help you a little bit in that regard, Matthew, because you've been out there working hard. So I can surely understand if you haven't had a whole lot of time to worry about these technical aspects. You've been out there with your feet on the ground, pounding the sand. I've seen you've been at events. So you've been working hard. So no excuse needed or necessary. We know you're out there working hard. But I'm also sure that at some point in time, you're going to get your setup properly done. And then we'll be able to do conversations and chats going forward that'll be a little bit more smoother. But trust me, at the very least, I just want people to at least hear what you've got to say today. So go ahead, like you said, give your history, why you chose to delve into politics, whatever which way you want to go with it, Matthew. You just go ahead, you take the lead, my friend.
Well, this is a conversation. I'm not one to dictate anything, right?
Right.
I'm somebody that has always kind of shared his opinions. Whether they were right or wrong, my belief was that at least by saying them, the right person with the right information is going to correct me. And it took a lot of, distancing myself from my ego to achieve that. Not to say that my ego doesn't sometimes flare up when I receive such nice compliments like you've just given me there in the introduction. But I've always cared deeply about finding out what the actual truth is. And I've always been willing to do uncomfortable things to get there. I spent a lot of time in self-reflection after a period of alcoholism. It runs in my family.
Right.
And I just decided, you know what, perhaps I have an issue here. And just by speaking out and receiving help, I left where I was at. I was in Newfoundland going to university for business geography and regional development.
Right.
And Newfoundland, of course, where it's got George Street, it pulled me into the beast of the belly in living, somewhat of a debaucherous life. And through that, I learned, a lot about myself and the values that I was being led by, which are these values that I was taught in university of leftism, pretty much. I mean, if you didn't toe that leftist ideological line in Newfoundland, you really did get ostracized. And that's what I quickly found out when I went back to Nova Scotia. I started this process of recovery. It meant a lot of time in deep reflection, sitting alone, thinking about my thoughts, why I would have those thoughts, the motivations for them. And then I started to get fascinated by humanity in general. And I started to learn about psychology and personality types and how there's always going to be this distribution. You're never going to get everybody that sees the same. And so I started to try and develop some sort of a worldview that would allow for everybody to participate. And I didn't have to create it. I found it. I found libertarianism. And through that, I've really started to change, the way that I act. Instead of preaching, I'm acting now. I'm actually doing things. I'm trying to get out into my community and to help where I can. And so I found that a huge silver lining for me at my deepest, darkest point through recovery was to help people. And so just share what my story was, to not be ashamed of it, because, I took it on. So I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of there. And I learned a lot of lessons from it. And I think that the people that get into the beast of the belly, that find that rock bottom, they perhaps are the only ones that can pull other people out of there. There's going to be those select few that have that within themselves, that growth mentality that somehow persists through and get out of it. But there's some that are just lost. Mm-hmm. And when I discovered Jordan Peterson and the way that he looked at the world and how he thought, I tried to apply a little bit of that into my own life. And so I would start little groups and try and reach out to people that might be having issues with not just alcoholism, but any kind of addiction. I mean, we can really, when we're deprived from feeling like we're moving towards meaning, we can really seek out for any kind of instant gratification. And that could be food and what you eat. That could be drugs and what you intake. It could be alcohol. And it could even just be an addiction to technology and losing yourself there. And so I've been through enough different depressions and different things that I feel like I have a great inner sense of what the turmoils people might be going through. And so that gives me a good perspective. Right. I feel like not only on the emotional sense, in the practical real world sense, I also have that, because I've always been somebody to go out, to meet new people, to talk to them, regardless of their, social economic state, regardless of their ethnicity, their religion, whatever it is, because I'm fascinated by them. And so through the run of my work, while going to university, I was a summer student with a telecommunications company where I was basically a cable guy, climb telephone poles, hang wires, climb in basements, bang your head off stuff, get yelled at. It was a good job. It allowed me to be out in the field, to meet a whole bunch of people, to encounter a whole bunch of situations. And I feel like I really thrived at it. And when you go into at least 5 different homes a day for 10 years, you really get to understand the living conditions in your community better than anybody else, in my opinion. When we think about any other person that you have working in your house, the plumber, he's only going to be in your washroom there. Yeah. The electrician, he's probably only there when the house is being built, and rarely when there's anything else. The technicians come and go into your house. The same house might have 3 visits from the same technician, where you build rapport with everyone. I can tell you what the layout of most people's homes are, and I can certainly tell you what their beliefs are, because that's the first thing that I'm asking.
Right.
And I've learned to be able to approach people from different things and to take the good from that. And so I think these combination of things, regardless that some people might laugh that my background is a cable guy and a comedian, I think are serious strengths to bring into this.
Very much so. And I'll just say first and foremost, just as a response to this, is kudos to you. And trust me, as someone that grew up on the East Coast, and I recognize because they're, you know, and I'm not going to, you know, point out particularly like Democrats in terms of Irish, but I recognize there are a lot of people that do have, especially on the East Coast, and maybe some of the historical precedent, that do have some alcohol related problems. To see a young man like yourself kind of recognize that even in himself, that tells me that obviously there's been some people in your life that have helped you tremendously and put you in a great mindset. And that's something that, like I say, whether you're delving into politics or in the private sphere, whatever you can bring to the table that brings some semblance of reasonableness, then I'm always appreciative of that. And like you were saying, when you're talking about the left versus right thing, I've always kind of recognized that myself is, you know, the left, and even when I was younger, and especially when I grew up in the inner city of Toronto, is just do whatever you have to do to kind of fit in, to be popular and all those, and have just the fun factor, right? Which was great for a while, but that's the problem with people that are a little bit on that left side of the spectrum is, you know, they understand the importance of freedom, but one thing I've always understood, and it took me a while, it took me to grow as an adult before I got that point, is there's no structure, there's nothing to solidify, there's nothing meaningful other than just to not adhere to anybody, you know. So pure rebellion for the sake of rebellion, which, I mean, that's not no good. There has to be something under. What are you rebelling against? If you're rebelling against, you know, having some kind of structure that teaches you morality, well, that's not actually going to work out good. And that's kind of what I noticed from the left is they don't like any kind of authoritarian structures for the most part. But you know what? I mean, if it's authoritarian at its base, that's one area, like I say, with the lefties, I'll agree with you, but you still need some kind of structure, because absent structure, where it's just a free-for-all and you just decide or determine what morality or what ethics entails based on your own personal assumptions, your own opinions, well, that's not usually going to work out. I'm not saying there aren't exceptions to the rule. There are, but for most of us, that's not going to work out well if you don't have any kind of genuine structure in terms of your morality and ethics. Now, for me, what kind of helped me out through all my transitions throughout my life, like I said, and I've gone, I consider myself a liberal. I've considered myself sometimes, especially in economics, where I'm a right winger. I've gone through all that thing. I was born and raised in a religious family. I thought I was dogmatic in terms of some of the stuff that I was indoctrinated with religion. But at the end of the day, what I took away from it is, no, I care about the morality and I care about the ethics, but you know, I want to strip away the authoritarianism from that. And that's why libertarianism seemed to be something that I kind of fell into as an adult quite naturally, because I still believe in structure. I still believe in morals and ethics, but at the same time, freedom is something that is a prerequisite to allow me to be able to think critically about these issues. If I didn't have the ability to escape some of that oppression or authoritarianism, whether it's from the dogmatists in religion or the dogmatists of the state, if I didn't have the competence or the ability to think critically myself about these things and understand that morals and ethics should be my guiding principles to determine how I want to interact or engage with people, whether it's on the social or economic realm. Without that, then if there wasn't someone in my past that had have given me that tool or those tools to use later in my life, then I think I would have failed many times. But I've fortunately had people in my life that did give me those tools, and I feel like I want to try to share them with people. And that sounds like what you're trying to do today.
Oh, absolutely. And to the point you made there, I think that rebelling without a cause, to me, is just a temper tantrum. That's what they call it.
Exactly. Yeah, good one, Matt. But yeah, continue, because I'm enthralled with your story. Because like I say, I'm sure not only will it resonate with people that'll be watching my video, but I'm sure it'll resonate a lot of people out there on that trail. Because that's the thing. What people like to hear is not that you're finger wagging to them. They want to hear you say that I've messed up in my own life, right? And this is how I'm correcting my life. And I'm just trying to offer you my own suggestion, my own opinion that, hey, it's worked for me. It might work for you as well.
And that's it. And not only do I say it's worked for me, it might work for you, I also try and always say, but not one thing is going to work for everyone. So like I said, with the different studies of personality traits, going into like Jungian psychology, things I was intrigued to, you know, from Jordan Peterson, the big five, and maybe a bit more pseudoscience stuff there, but like MBTIs, it's really clarified to me just how some people, they can think critically. Some people, they can't think critically. Some people, they can think morally and ethically. Some people, they cannot think morally and ethically. We don't have the ability to tap into all of these different things. Some people are feelers, some people are thinkers. And so that's why humans work in a group sometimes, in a society where you have to bounce ideas off other people. Did I do something wrong here? Did I misstep here? What should we be doing about this issue? If you have certain blind spots, ask people. Don't just say, here's a media message that seems to tick off the list. Let's just advocate for that. Because then when people ask you about your beliefs, you're going to and ah, because you haven't actually thought critically about it. You never actually delved into it. And I've been there, all right? I was in university. I was a young 18-year-old man looking for people to like me because I had grown up and wrecked so many groups of friends by just being a class clown, you know, by pushing those boundaries. Right. And some people will look at me and say, you know what, you're the most, you know, they'll say nice things. And I'll say, if you only knew me before, right? And so I see that growth. And I've seen it in other individuals. Like, those were my mentors. Is what showed me that it was possible. And so all I'm trying to do is to just act, right? To just go through the motions, not preach. I've been a preacher before, and there is times that I think that, you know what, perhaps we need to give our opinion if we think it's critical, and we can give a finger wag perhaps, but of course, expect somebody to come back and be like, who the hell are you to say it, right? So that's where I always try and get. If I ever start sliding into that judgmental area, I try and bring myself back. What do I know? I'm 28. You know, those people that set those things for themselves, that say, you know what, I know everything about this. I went to university for this, or they'll do all these things. It's just setting themselves a ceiling. It's saying, I know it all. So therefore, they're not going to keep questioning about those things. The brain is an efficient mechanism. So if it feels like, oh, everything's good, it's just going to use that to start thinking about other things. So you can't set yourself a ceiling. You always have to say, this is what I believe from the current information I have. I believe, do what you know until you know better. But once you know better, you better start doing better. And that's a hard thing to do. And so in that transitionary period of coming to some sort of an awakening in your personal or political or spiritual life, whatever it is, there's going to be that time where, okay, now I've recognized what I'm doing isn't right. I recognize the temptations now when they're coming. And sometimes even I recognize that I still make the conscious decision to do those things. So you're still going to make those mistakes, but now you're making them consciously. Now it's more egregious. Now's when you start working on it to make sure that you are a man or woman of your word and of your actions. And it's a very hard step to take. And I think it takes a lifetime to get close to being perfect at it. Yeah. So I don't think you ever can be. Even, you know, the good Lord flipped a table. We got emotions, and emotions will flow through us. And so for me, I've learned to meditate. I've learned to breathe. But I still felt that, you know what, there's a lot of growth that I needed to do. And so by getting involved in politics, beyond just being a keyboard warrior, that's where my story started with the People's Party. Yeah. And so after those, you know, 4 years of recovery and going from actually voting Justin Trudeau to now supporting and running for as a candidate for the People's Party of Canada and Maxime Bernier, there's been a lot of change that had gone on. And I think that a lot of it was just kind of change and reverting back to who I was. I grew up with a lot of these values. And I think when you talk to people, they actually live by them, regardless if they espouse that they do different things. You know what, let's have a big open world where everybody can come in. I still see a lock on their door of their house. I still see them having a VPN to have privacy from people knowing what they're doing, you know? And that's fair and that's reasonable. The world is a dangerous place. And what we're celebrating as society is the fact that we've established it so where we can be peaceful and we can walk outside and we can have those spaces that are safe for dialogue and public discourse. And that at the end of the day, we can go home. We shouldn't have to worry about being doxxed, about people standing outside our doors with masks on, because we're in Canada and we have been a place of tolerance and discussion and pushing the boundaries. Look at comedy. We've exported so many of our comedians who are pushers of the boundaries to America. And the ones that stay in Canada are all the ones that are working for the CBC. So, and when you get there, right? Because they want to get their paycheck. I've worked with a lot of them in Halifax. So
no, it's so true. And like I say, just listen to the way this man goes on, folks. Like I say, this is someone that has leadership qualities even at a very young age. I just want to point out though that Linda, I'm not sure how to pronounce that last name, Kelmesh, without any. That's anyways. I love this guy talking about you, Matt. I'm struggling with the beast right now. I would assume she has alcohol.
Yes.
Well, right?
Keep going.
Yeah, it's hell, but I'm never afraid to talk about it. Kudos to you, Matt. Inspiring. So look at this. This is just one more person that you're helping, by sheer fact. It's not even doesn't
It's not me helping. She's helping vicariously. The fact that she took the time to reach out and post that, not only sharing to me, but to everybody in your audience. Good on you, Linda. Good on you.
I agree, man. Like I said, that's why I was always appreciative. And actually, just to point out right now, before I even continue on, is actually Matthew's even doing a proper example of how, if you're going to engage in dialogue with me, and because I can be a little bit forthright, and I have a lot of things. Well, take the initiative. Matt's taking the initiative. I'll sit back. I'll be quiet. I'll listen to what
you're talking too much.
No. I'm saying for you, that's glad. Like for people that say, because I do hear people say that I end up maybe taking center stage sometimes when I'm interviewing people. It's like, well, I'm just kind of playing on the other person. If they just go, I will never purposely interrupt someone midstream. But if the flow isn't, if I feel like I have to kind of take center stage to kind of keep the flow of the conversation going, that's kind of what I do. But Matthew's showing that actually he has the capacity to do that himself. So that's what I mean. It's not that I ever try to push myself or try to impose myself. It's just that I kind of try to deal with the flow of the conversation. I'm glad Matthew's showing that he has the initiative, that no, he doesn't have to rely on me. Matter of fact, I'm the kind of guy, to tell you the truth, that's what I want, especially from younger people. I'll sit in the back seat. You go ahead, take over the wheel. Actually, that's the young people. The future is yours. So I don't want to be the one to be constantly steering them, to be honest with you.
Oh, I get that too. I get that too. The gift of the gab is a double-edged sword, right? A lot of people can love it until they're sitting on it for too long, and then it starts to cut through them, right? So it is what it is. I got that from my mother in Newfoundland. I never realized that I was half speaking Newfoundlandese until grade 1 when she pointed out that it wasn't 1, 2, 3. It was 1, 2, 3. But alas, I've come together and presented myself. I think I have a little bit of an accent still from different Atlantic Canadian influences, but I appreciate everything so much about the peoples here, the manner of speech, and it's an amazing place to live. Yeah.
Now you're getting another compliment from Trish Farron that she was obviously talking about, or when you were talking about the fact that, because like I say, even your little personal anecdotes and stories, that resonates with people. That's so important, right? You're not just delving into this, and that kind of tells me that you care about people. You have that compassionate side of you. You didn't delve into the just, here, let me give you a sales pitch. Let me give you a political message. You started this conversation saying, like you say, I got things I had to work through. This is where I get, to the point where I am today by going through all these rough patches in my life. But hey, I'm trying my best. I'm striving to do something better today to make myself better tomorrow. And that's, like I say, that's the kind of leadership qualities that I want and I expect in people that are going to run, and especially for the PPC, is to show those kind of leadership qualities, which Matthew has in spades. I'll acknowledge right now.
Well, thank you very much.
No problem. Just going through the chat there, Matt. Just go right ahead, buddy. I'm going to just see because a lot of times I will scroll past the chat, but I want to.
No, yeah, you address some of that stuff.
Yeah,
there. I'll continue on for another little bit.
Yep.
So, like you said there, I'm willing to show people my mistakes, and perhaps and probably that actually might not make me a lasting politician. Perhaps it'd make me the politician I would want to see, but it certainly seems like everything can be taken out of context. And so I knew this going into it. And I made the decision to allow as many people as possible to view what my thoughts are and to view my history by allowing most, if not 99% of my posts on my Facebook to be public, going back years. I've had people that have gone through there over the years and said, listen, I've been following you for a year or two. I feel like I know you. Well, that's perfect. If I can have a resume that goes back that long, absolutely, because it'll show like that. That's what I want people to see. When they call me a homophobe, they're going to be able to go back 4 years ago and see a speech I did speaking about why we should be more tolerant, like to people in that community. And I even had a discussion about going back, I think this was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, about the different varieties of headwear and stuff like that some people wear, like the niqab or whatever it is. Now, again, most of this was influenced because this was the time when I was very much in that left-leaning sphere. And so I was giving the audience, Newfoundland, what they had wanted. These were all topical things that were in the news, and I felt I should take a stance on. But 4 years ago, that stance was a parroted stance. And by reiterating, as opposed to thinking, it made me so dissatisfied and felt so internally distant from who I actually was, that I think that's what caused me to do a lot of this self-comforting behavior that manifested through addictions.
Right.
And so by doing that critical thought and by being in a very uncomfortable position for a couple of years, by starting to actually espouse libertarianism, conservatism, classical liberalism to an audience of very leftist friends, I love them all deeply, but they might say that I've now changed and gone so far off the right that, I'm off the scale, which is not even, I don't think, close. If you look at what I'm saying, I'm one of them, I think, much more perhaps moderate, open-minded of certain people. So,
well, that probably has their own dogma, right?
Yeah, that's just it. Is anytime that I'll say something, they'll respond as if they had read something entirely different. And for me, I try and communicate specifically. Sometimes I make mistakes and I use a word that I had thought meant something specifically. But generally, I think that if you take the transcripts of what I say and you don't read between the lines, you should be able to come to the conclusion of what I was trying to say, because I try and state it very clear.
Yeah.
I'm getting better and better at that. And I think that, it's a pattern of my life to try and do that growth mentality. And so a calendar year ago, I was doing a televised set for stand-up comedy. And a calendar year before that, I was doing my first set of stand-up comedy.
Nice.
So I'm willing to put myself out there to be bad, to be amateur, to be embarrassed, to get to that point of really learning the lessons to become a professional and to have that competence and to have that understanding.
Yeah.
And you know what? If people want to go through my past and judge all the mistakes, well, I think they're going to have a lot of mistakes to judge. But I think that also, if you understand what a mistake is, it's just a lesson. So you can either think, look at all these mistakes he's made, or look at all these lessons he learned. Because once you find a mistake on my wall that I've made, you won't find it again further down the timeline, because I learn, because I hold myself accountable, because I ask others to hold me accountable.
Yeah.
If you seek a comfortable life, you're going to have the most uncomfortable life in this. It just ain't going to happen for you.
I like the struggle.
Exactly. A struggle like we had here recently, where we had Hurricane Dorian come through. It brings a lot of winds. What do those winds do? It rocks the trees back and forth. What does that do? It builds up the fibers and it makes strong trees. All right. If you want to get to Mount Everest, you're going to have to take some pretty hard paths before you get there. You aren't going to be able to do those like 10, 15-minute little hikes. Oh, I've been doing one of those a day for the past while, I can do it. It's no, you need to challenge yourself beyond what you can do each day, whether that's 1%, 0.001%, or 0.00001%. So long as you can feel like I at least made that effort today to be better than yesterday. Yeah. I think, you know what? All the power to you. Even if the person of today was a bit rocky and the person of yesterday was even worse, you're getting better. Good on you. Exactly. Things are either improving or they're declining. There's no state of equilibrium that's lasting in this world. If you look at a rock, it's going to, over time, bust apart. If you have a house and you don't live in it, it's going to depreciate far faster. It's going to rot. Exactly. So I don't know. I've got a couple different views, and I'm just trying to put it together for the people and show what it looks like to live.
No, actually, you did a great job there, Matthew. I just want to respond to what you're saying, because this is something I've recognized today. Which is really weird for someone like myself. Is a lot of the young people today that I talk to, whether it's friends of my own sons, because I have sons that are in their 20s as well, and I hear from a lot of people, and I got a lot of people that have their own children, and I hear from, and the weird part today, and you kind of touched down on this a little bit earlier, is it's actually the ones that are seemingly on that I guess you could call it left. Yeah, just call it left politically, but I guess atheist, the ones that have chosen to, get rid of the dogma of religion. So their parents maybe weren't very religious themselves, and they were, as a consequence of that, but the weird part is, you would think today that these would be people that, okay, if you have no dogma because of religion, because I recognize growing up in a religious family, a lot of dogma, a lot of people that are unwilling to even have any of their orthodoxy questioned, because they hold it so near and dear to the heart, which kind of deterred me when I was a child, because like I say, in my religious family, is like, I know these people are smart, so they should be able to, like, if I question them or challenge them, and rather than getting this cognitive dissonance and getting mad at me for questioning them, their orthodoxy or their dogma, I rather they just try to explain things, but they couldn't explain it to themselves, so they failed in their ability to explain to me. So that's why part of me was like, I don't necessarily want to align with that totally, because it doesn't seem right. If you can't explain that dogma to me, properly and articulate that, then that's a failure somehow. But what you're seeing today, which is the strange thing, and how this is like, it's like a reverse polarity, is it's those people that have rejected religions like Christianity, Catholicism, Protestants, and all those people, predominantly in Anglo Canada, predominantly, or even French Canada, is a lot of them that went towards atheism and rejected the dogma are actually, I find them even more dogmatic today than some of the religious fundamentalists. So what it is, and a lot of people that are intellectuals through academia, now they're coming up with all kinds of terminology to use. I've heard someone use the terminology, the blue church, right? So this would be an American enterprise, because blue would be representative of the left side of the political spectrum. But yeah, they're basically aligning and acknowledging the kind of things that I've understood for a while is, yes, no, it wasn't that they rejected dogma, is they've created their own form of religion. And to them, it's rather than going to a church with a cross on the top, or a cathedral or anything like, now it's the education centers or the parliament buildings. That is their new form of religion. And they're so dogmatic in the belief that they'll reject any semblance of reasonable discourse by sheer fact that they want to align with that dogma. So to me, it's like, actually, no, the lefties, the blue state, or those really ideologically driven, people that were the religious fundamentalists in the past, those people are the genuine representatives of the extremes. These are people that aren't willing to think critically on any issue when they're questioned. And to me, the best thing I can do for anyone going forward, my kids or anyone that's younger than me, or anyone that's even on the same age range as me, is try to break the fruit free from any of that dogma. Not to say you reject, and that's another thing. I don't want to throw the baby with the bathwater. I recognize Christianity brought a lot of great things to the West. So I don't want to throw the baby with the bathwater, but I don't want to just align or allow all the people that are dogmatic fundamentalists to just constantly go through the life believing in things that can be proven to be absolutely incorrect. Same thing for people on the left. I don't want to allow these people to be so dogmatically driven that they're unwilling to question things in the proper sense, because I've seen how much that has failed humanity in the past. And that's what I'm seeing today, is like you're acknowledging, is the people that you really got to worry about today. It's not your religious fundamentalists, right? Matter of fact, you don't hear much from those people anymore.
No, they're scared to death to say their opinions.
Right. Anyways, what's your reason? What do you think about that, Matt?
Well, I think that when you bring up religion, you bring it up, I think, in the organizational setting, which is encompassing the people who have gotten involved and perhaps changed what the vision or the message was. To me, what I view a religion is it's three things. It's a set of beliefs, it's a cause, and it's some sense of meaning.
Right.
So I would argue that those three things, though classified a religion, perhaps should be more considered a human necessity.
Right.
And so even though people have, through secularism, rejected religion in some numbers. In fact, it seems religion's actually bouncing back if you look at some of those stats, but a lot of people have. And so they still need something to believe in. I grew up Roman Catholic. I was an altar server for several years. When I went to university, I was an atheist, and my brothers all went through the same process. When I came back out of it, I was almost much firmly more into my faith. My brothers, however, were not, and that's fine. But they definitely have certain causes. When I listen to them talk about certain things, that they're defending, and they're only defending based on a faith. They don't have the facts. This is what I believe. Yeah. Beliefs are great, but beliefs are also dangerous. Mm-hmm. And so you need to hash them out. And I think that the extremes, they aren't these faith-based people. These people here, they want to be kind. They want to turn the other cheek. They want to live amongst other people. The people that you find in the extremes are the people who skew on the disagreeable scale, if you look at personalities, and who perhaps might be certain personalities. There's some that basically act without thinking. Those people can be involved with it. And there's certain people that are extremely prone and sensitive to fear. And fear can either make you fight or flight. And so there's perhaps a 50% of the fear classification that's gone into fight mode. You're not going to be able to stop those people without information, because fear comes from not having knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from trying to anticipate, overanalyzing. It's a evolutionary trait that we shouldn't shun. We should just understand what it is and play to that. And so that's where I try and come in. And that's when I saw the People's Party being, called all these far right things. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm the farthest from far right.
Yeah.
I'm not the farthest from far right. Let's not I'm not a communist, but I'm not somebody that I think can be classified within that. So let's actually tell what we're trying to talk about, because I've seen how, after getting involved in politics, how the message gets so easily distorted and intentionally distorted at times by media in all the different forms, whether that's in text, through radio, and how they'll cut those things up and online. So I knew that I had to actually stand out there and put my face to it, because enough people have been watching my journey for some time that it's, I think, caused conflict in their mind, because they're seeing these messages like, oh, you should treat the PPC or feel this way about the PPC. But then they're like, but I know somebody very well who stands for them, and what he says does not reflect this. So either he's lying or you're lying.
Yep.
And I think that a good portion of the people have started to really kind of question the biases that they see in the media and why they might word things certain ways. And so the way that I view this opportunity is that perhaps I might need to take the fall, and I'll be the canary in the mine. And I think that I need to do that. I don't think that I'd be able to stand in 4 years and talk about the same things, and the other candidates talk about the same things, with the current decline that we're seeing with what we are allowed to speak about. And so sacrifices, man. Jordan Peterson, he got it right. And I'm focused on the now. I take I could be hit by a car, so I'm not going to be worried about what ramifications might come down the road. But I know that when I need to stand, I will, and I will do it amongst the first. And you can now look back to history. And so that's why I feel comfortable being with the People's Party, because I know that over the test of time, it will be shown how the message was misdirected, how our candidates are good, wholesome, amazing people from a vast variety of backgrounds, whether that's political, ethnic, or religious. It's a good group of people who really just want to show an idea that's been held back by these two authoritarian left and right foot parties that are just stomping over us. And so we're excited. We're really flipping excited to grow so fast, to see the people actually waking up. And like we said earlier, it takes pressure to cause real change. A lobster don't melt his shell until he starts feeling, it's getting a bit tight in here. And so let's make it a bit tight in here. Let's start talking about uncomfortable things. Boom. Society is starting to wake up. Boom. They're getting more information. It might get worse before it gets better. But as they start looking into it, then they start seeing, you know what? This perceived enemy that I have, that I think lives amongst me in Canada, is so minuscule. It's unbelievable. The parties that are representing in the mainstream, such as the PPC, are nowheres near. You can feel in great comfort that the future of Canada is not going to go to one of these type of extreme groups. The problem is that the PPC is being slandered as being one of them. And it's so dangerous because of where that call is it's coming from the Prime Minister's office. For us to be a brand new party at 3%, 4%, 5%, to be attacked as we are, that's such political taboos. It's ridiculous. So they're scared. They're scared, and good.
Yeah. Well, actually, Matt, what I was just going to say, and this is something that's always kind of stuck in my craw for a while, is, and this is the part which really, really hard for those of us that are critical thinkers and try to question some of the dogma or orthodoxy of the people from the right or the left, is because we're so questioning in nature and don't have this fundamental egotistic stance in terms of our pursuit of knowledge, because that's what we're doing. To be someone that's into the pursuit of knowledge means that you have to actually, the only prerequisite for that is to be able to put aside your dogma. But because you don't carry that dogma with you, it gives you a certain to other people that listen to you. I have heard this even from people that have responded to me, is I don't sound like I'm nearly as sure of myself as I should be. Well, why is that? Because I don't know. The more I know, the less I actually believe that I genuinely know. That's kind of that's an old quote from someone I remember from a long time in the past. But basically, once you start to perceive and understand some of the knowledge that you're trying to strive to attain, you realize that, there's a whole lot more. There's so much more out there for me to learn. Whereas if you're a dogmatist, Well, you can, and if you have a good personality, if you have good salesmanship or marketing skills, well, you have the ability to convince people to believe whatever the hell because you're so secure in your knowledge. When in reality, a lot of it is based on mysticism. But as long as you're willing to be so secure in your knowledge and aren't willing to question it, then you can present your narrative in a way that seems like, well, to be that secure in the knowledge, well, geez, they must really be the one. But no, actually, in reality, if you think back, or you think about it properly, even a scientist will tell you that it's a theory, right? I'm going to rely on a theory based on scientific evidence, but I'm still going to rely on the fact that if somebody offers new evidence, that contradicts some of my own knowledge, well, the scientist, a proper scientific mind, a questioning mind, an inquisitive mind says, well, I'll pivot in a heartbeat the minute someone offers genuine evidence that's proven to be clear and concise. Where, just like the old, go back as far as the Ptolemaic system. I mean, they had to do almost yoga type efforts in their mind to try to make it so that the entire universe worked under that old scenario. But all it was the fundamental understanding that no, the earth isn't the center universe. And once new knowledge come to fruition, well, once we based our understanding and our mathematics on some of that new revelations in terms of information, well, we could test the hypothesis, and we've done so. We've sent spaceships to, near Earth orbits in the planet, or to the moon, or to Mars, which tells you that at least it seems like there was something at least consistent in that newfound knowledge. And thankfully, scientists of the past weren't dogmatic, and they were willing to reject that shit. To me, that's what I want people today is don't reject people just because they're not 100% secure. Like, I'll even admit myself, there might be something come to my mind tomorrow and I'll question something in the past, but it doesn't mean that I'm not secure in my knowledge that I present. I'm just saying that I still have questions. And actually, it's the people that don't have questions anymore are the ones that you really should be overly concerned with.
Yeah, it's when somebody says, well, hold on there. I might have misspoke a little bit. It might be this. Let me go back and check that. Or clarifies, well, I don't know. That's the person I'm like, you know what? I want to be listening to more of what this person has to say, because I've been deceived by somebody who speaks with utter confidence on utter BS. And so I'm over that, Yeah. I'll respect their voice. I'll let it, be said, and I will back check it because, not to be, I just want to be right. I want to be living my life in a rightful way, not right about certain topics, but I want to be, okay, we're on to the right thing here for everyone to be able to be free, to be prosperous, to have opportunities, to be excited, and to have the ability to pursue happiness. Now, am I saying that this is a la world? No, not at all. I'm a little bit reasonable where I can understand that there's going to still be a lot of suffrage going on. We've got a lot of issues, foreign and internal, that are pushing us in not a good direction. We look at the division that we have here, where people, even within their own family, if they share different political beliefs, can't talk to each other. People are becoming isolated. We have, you look at older people and the issues that they've had for so long about being left alone, and you can see what it does to their psyche. Yeah. Well, that's coming. There's 16 to their age now that's starting. People have the computer, and so they might feel like, I'm touching into social now. I'm getting out there. I'm talking to people, but they're not. They're hiding away. They don't feel comfortable even talking, espousing their views. They have so many questions. We have people taking their lives for the fact that nobody has reached out to them to say, I love you and I want you here on this earth.
Yep.
As people have become more, and I air quote, you can't see it, interconnected, they've become far more dissociated. And I do worry that if we don't have these hard conversations and we start to silence, that it will get to, and I don't want to be an alarmist, let's say maybe 100 years, a civil war. I don't know. I just know that if we look at human nature and we tell a toddler to shut up, what's it going to do? Don't tell your toddler to shut up, by the way, but it's going to wreck your house. It's going to destroy it. Yeah. If you actually took the time to say, you know what, let's sit down and listen to you, you're probably going to hear incoherent babble for about 2 minutes. Right. But the household is going to keep its nice feel. Everybody's going to walk away. There's not going to be any holes in the wall or crayons on the floor. So nice. That's the kind of world that I want to be in, is that we recognize that there will occasionally be times that we need to step into an uncomfortable position to ensure that things continue to move forwards.
Exactly. Well, I just want to, Matt, real quick, because I've been kind of putting this on the back burner while we've been engaging in this dialogue, which I'm really appreciate, by the way. But Steve LaCroix, and he brought this up well, because yeah, as you heard, because of the NDP candidates, the provincial candidates that kind of jumped ship. Now the new narrative is that everyone in New Brunswick, basically. Now, someone from Nova Scotia, I acknowledge, because my aunt works at QE2, the hospital, while she's retired now. She was a dietitian at QE2 there, but I do understand actually Nova Scotia, and I lived there for about a year when I was a young man, where there is a bit of a different in terms of demographics, because there's a fairly healthy, actually a substantial portion of a Black community in Nova Scotia, in particular, Yarmouth, Weymouth, Dartmouth, and Halifax. I got friends that are some of the greatest people you'll ever meet. And it's funny when people from different areas or different jurisdictions hear these guys, you're like, you sound like it is East Coaster, but you're Black. It's like but yeah, but they are. Like I say, there's a healthy population, so maybe it's not as big of a deal in Nova Scotia, like I say, because I only have a year of experience there. But I will say in New Brunswick, there is this kind of undertone of racism. But actually, when I think about it critically in my mind, I mean, there are obviously some prejudice and some ignorance. That's no doubt about that. But in reality, when I think about it, and I think about the kind of things that people have said, when the camera wasn't on them, a lot of times it's not necessarily racism. It's more about an in-group preference to me. So racism is you're trying to tell or suggest that there are people that are not worthy of being humans, or not worthy of compassion. Or to me, that's the kind of prejudice or racism that people usually try to allay or convey in their messaging. But what I do find is there is a healthy in-group preference. I'm not saying that's a good thing by any stretch. Like, to me, I've always been the kind of person that I just deal with the individual. If you're good, if you're a decent moral person, I don't give a crap what your background is. But there is something that you were not going to beat out of humans, because humans, what it is throughout all of history, kind of had to figure out that the importance of in-group preference, not just for spreading your genes, but also for having some kind of safety or comfort from external threats. So to me, my biggest problem is when people raise the fact that maybe there's some people in New Brunswick that are maybe ignorant to things and have some in-group preference. Well, to me, it's like, well, okay, how would you correct that, right? Well, finger wag at them, talk down upon them, and say, "Oh, you're just a bunch of fucking racist piece of shit." Is that going to help them? As a matter of fact, I'm fairly certain that if you constantly talk about these people in that manner, well, all you're going to do is embolden them to double down on their ignorance. Now, to me, what I've always done my whole life is I'll just, bring things to fruition. So I'll just use a perfect example. When I worked in Fredericton and I drove for a cement truck company, is a lot of them are like, "Oh, I'm not going to go to those First Nation community because, I've heard that they're just a bunch of fucking drunks and they'll try to pick fights with you." And so to me, I was like, okay, I've heard the dogma, I've heard the bullshit. It's like, give me the bill of lading, I'm going. And then you just test that hypothesis and trying to navigate those waters yourself. Now I'll say obviously, be careful what you're trying to do. But if you do it in a reasonable manner, and what I've always understood as an individual, actually, every time someone is trying to jam something in my mind, every time I've tested their hypothesis, most of the times I've proven it to be incorrect. The stereotypes don't stick to everyone. Now, there might be a generalized statement that you can make. Like, you could even say that, hey, Irish people tend to like to have a drink. And I'll agree with that. But I would never suggest that every person that was born with Irish blood flowing through their veins are all a bunch of drunks. So to me, like I say, let's treat each other as individuals. That's why, to me, libertarianism is so important, is because there are lots of ways that you can stereotype and paint people into particular corners. But the only way to break through from that and get yourself out with some good, healthy psychology on the other side of it is, like I say, break free from the dogma and test their hypothesis in real world examples. Now, make sure you're safe when doing so. I'm not saying, right, if someone says, "Oh, there's an inner city gang down on Queen Street, downtown Toronto," I'm not saying, and they tend to be thieves. I'm not saying let's walk down with your wallet hanging out with $1,000 bills. Right? That's not a good way to do it. But like I said, do not allow dogma to be the driver for your intellect or how you perceive other people. Test those waters out, because chances are, if you do so, then you'll be in a pretty good, healthy position. You'll realize that no, it's not about skin color. At the end of the day, it's about morality and the ideas that roam around in their cranium, right?
Oh, yeah. Martin Luther had that as well, right?
Yeah, but best ever. Yep.
Nice. I'm like you, as in I'm a tester. I won't take somebody's word of somebody for granted. I won't even take, something as absolute for granted. I'll tell you a little bit of an embarrassing story. I was 3 or 4, and Dad was building the deck, and I picked up a hammer.
Yep.
And I hadn't experimented with physics before. And I said, I bet if I haul this thing high enough up, that thing's going to stay in the air. It didn't. It came directly down onto my nose.
Mm.
Then I learned about gravity at a young age.
Mm.
And so, yes, when people tell me you should watch out for this or you should do that, that honestly makes me judge that person, not the group. Then I'm going to, probably out of spite, go and meet that group with the most open, welcoming thing. And you know what? You give what you get. Everyone just wants to be respected.
Right.
And so, yeah, when you run into those people you were talking about earlier, I do think that you need to talk to them in the moment. I don't think you need to finger wag. I think you need to say your piece and leave. I think that change takes time. A change in a tree takes time. So when you say your piece, if you've done it well enough, you've not only left a seed, but a little bit of water there that they're going to allow to soak in. And give it enough time, you come back, you're going to see a sprout there. And you're going to say, well, I'm going to water it a bit more. And on the 20 days when they're sitting alone and thinking, they're going to start growing fruit.
I love the way you think, Matthew. Exactly right up my plant the seeds. And like you say, not just the seed.
Like, I'm not telling you what to do. Here's my opinion. You plant the seed. If you want to leave me a seed with to take, listen, I'll water lots of different stuff, right? I'm trying to grow a garden out here. I want some diversity of thought in my own life.
Right. I'm just checking real quick there, Matt, because I seen Trish offered, I think, a little bit of her own personal anecdotal experience in terms of alcohol. Maybe you can help in some way. I'm not sure she even has a question. I'm just going to read it right now. So my parents were alcoholics. I looked at pictures of my mom on her 25th anniversary. She looked good. When I got married, she looked half dead, aged at least 40 years. It's awful what it does to the body. And you know, I'm pretty sure, Matt, well, do you have anything you want to respond to Trish with that, man?
Oh, it wears you away. It dries out the skin. It does all these physical things, but you know what you're seeing there is the iceberg. So you're seeing, oh my God, that tip of that iceberg is really melting away. It's not that same person I used to know. What you don't realize is that inside of that person has also died to a great ordeal. Every time that they have those inclinations or those needs to have alcohol, they also recognize, perhaps some of them recognize, not all, what the ramifications are going to be for their family. And so they're always in a state of guilt because they're always in that state of inebriation and avoidance.
Well said.
I feel for them. It's difficult. It's so difficult. If I didn't have my family, and not only if I didn't have my family, if I didn't have the kind of family I do of having support and stuff, oh my, it absolutely breaks my heart. And it's not just alcoholism now. It's drugs, right? It could be some 60-year-old man who's never once had a smoke of a joint even. And he gets an injury at work and he's near the end of his career and he's about to retire. And then he gets prescribed something from a doctor.
Right.
And he loses his life to opioids. You know, it can happen really friggin' quick. We got to be checking in on each other. We got to have community. We got to be face to face. We can't be behind our keyboards all the time. And we're not even doing that much learning behind it anyways. It's shocking that in the age of information, all we end up doing is reading the friggin' headlines. So, you know, go out there and talk to people and gather what the actual real world experiences are, not just what all these intuitive daydreams of what this idealistic future could be, because you're just fighting to have Santa Claus be real.
Yeah, it's so true.
I love it. The North Pole, we can create it, but you're not going to have the magic.
No, exactly. Well said. I'm just checking here. I see this Great Dominion has put some decent comments there. I'm not sure if I already missed some, but I do see that.
Yeah, the Great Dominion got that on.
So he's got something about Ayn Rand there. Usually I'm a bit of a fan of Ayn Rand. In terms of her understanding of objectivism. Yes, she is. And I get that a lot of people kind of take away from her that she was a little bit cold, right? And you know, maybe in some degree, but she was basically what I think her idea at the time was. She was trying to build on Aristotle's pretense of let's just use objective logic and the real world that we all experience and completely reject any dogma entirely. And I guess the way she went about it, you know, it did seem a little bit hard or hardened, a little heartless and cold, but the reason why she was being analytical in terms of governance. And that's one area. It's like, it's a difficult thing to do because it's literally to suggest that and some people even suggested that, and they'll even accuse of libertarians of this, is it sounds very utopian, right? But no, actually, I think it's kind of more of a reflection of reality. Actually, I think objectivists and libertarians take a more firmer grasp of reality, and which is why all of them every one of these people always suggest, based on their philosophical underpinnings, is keep, big government, like keep using force and violence as a means to an end. Keep it at bay, because trust me, you got people that can use their mind, their intellect, and use the market to achieve or attain most of the success in our social or economic interactions. That is what I take away from someone like Ayn Rand. Now, I get if you just sat down and listened to the way that she talked about in terms of like romantic relations and stuff, but what it was is she was trying to be consistent in her own morality, in her own ethics, which is to say that I don't love someone because they're needy of me. I love someone because of what that brings to me. And actually that kind of resonates with me, because I don't just love my wife by the fact that I felt like I had to be empathetic towards her and she's worthy of my love. No, I love her from what she is, for what she brings to me, what the kind of fulfillment she brings to my life. So that is a little bit selfish if you're honest about it, right? But it doesn't mean that you're selfish for the sheer fact that I only care about myself. But actually, free marketers, even though might not necessarily, be predisposed to concern about people that I actually have no clue about. But if I do things, under proper moral or ethical interaction, then by natural extension, those people that run on the other side or benefactors of that equation, they're going to benefit as well. That's the same thing if you go back to Adam Smith and the whole pretense of it's not the benevolence of the butcher or the baker, right? So if I want to, create a butcher shop and become a butcher, or, I'm a baker and bake people's bread, I'm not selling that bread to these people by sheer fact that I'm so empathetic that I just want to, do such great thing. I'm so benevolent. I just want to offer bread to people. No, there's a selfish reason why I want to bake bread, why I want to get up 5 o'clock in the morning, turn that freaking damn hot oven on, right? Go through all that crap, sweat all day long. There's some selfish desires. I want to be able to take care of myself and my family. But by that natural extension, even though there was some, like, I was more or less concerned about myself. First of all, it gave me good, healthy self-esteem for myself. So now if I have healthy self-esteem, I won't be so easily susceptible to falling for some blind authority or arbitrary authority. So that's a good thing. But by sheer fact that whether I'm doing it for myself or whether I'm doing it through an empathetic or a benevolent means, at the end of the day, if you do things under a free market, a voluntary structure, that either side of that equation or all sides of that equation benefit by natural extension.
Absolutely. Well, when you talk about selfishness, to me, there's two kinds of selfishness. There's selfishness and malice, which is where it's just me, and screw the other person. Yeah. And then there's self-care, selfishness. And that's, I need to make sure that I got my stuff together because I got a lot of responsibility and people I'm looking after. So when you're on an airplane, what are the instructions? It's to put that mask on yourself so you can keep breathing. You keep that oxygen going to your brain. So you, as the responsible parent, can keep your child conscious by putting it on them after. You know what? All your good intentions of let's help everyone first. Let's put the air mask on Africa. Let's put the air mask on Saudi Arabia. Like whatever it is, we're just going to be here passed out in Canada. Yeah,
exactly. Well said. So perfectly. No, that's a perfect response. Because like you say, that's what you got to do. Just with my own family. And like I say, whether you're talking about normal, like today in our modern Western capitalist driven societies, or go back to the state of nature as hunter-gatherers. Yeah. What good would you be as the dad or the hunter-gatherer if you just sacrificed yourself to anything or for anyone? Yeah. And what good would you be to your family? You'd be nothing. They wouldn't have
the pride of a lion here, right? Let's think about the pride of a lion. Right. When they go and they eat an animal, those big ones, those main hunters, the alphas, they might eat a little bit more. Yeah. Why do they have to do that? Well, because they're the one bringing in that haul for everyone else. Exactly. They've got to use a lot more energy to go and chase them down. They're taking a lot more risks from horns and tusks of these animals that they might be going up against. That is just nature. More risk, more reward. If you're going to go out there and pursue and do those things, you should be rewarded for it. I'm sick and tired of being a part of a society that persecutes anyone that makes over $100,000, which $100,000, by God, won't get you too far every year. So, and you talk to these people, how they got there, and it took a hell of a lot of time. There's not too many that are my age that are up there, right? You trade time to a certain extent for wealth. And so much of my generation, and I think that that's the only place I should be criticizing with him because that's who I'm a part of, is entitled. I see this beautiful car that I grew up when I was in my teens with. Mom and dad brought me around in their BMW or their lovely Toyota or whatever it is. I want that car right away. They don't remember the old Polaroid photos of them growing up in the Tercel. in an old Ford Ranger being towed by their dad. You know, like they didn't. Your parents started humble, so stop blaming the boomers. It was all down to, like we said earlier in this conversation, it wasn't down to these good-hearted people. It was down to these bad-hearted corporations that were given all the benefits of being a human without the fact of having death be a part of their life cycle. You know, corporations can live forever. And so that's where we're starting to lose. And so I'm not one of these that goes and says, you know what, this generation is bad or this generation. I'll criticize within my own. Absolutely. Yeah. But I think everybody should be doing that within their own groups, right? Yeah. Whatever groups that they might, you know, claim that. But I don't think then that you should take that message from within your own group and start preaching to other people. If you find like-minded people, you're all going to have a slightly different take on things. So bat it out between yourselves to find what's the best course going forwards and what you can learn from each other. And then, you know, make change and evolution happen within your own lives. Work selfishly to better yourself. Work selfishly to make sure that your mind is good. And then all of a sudden you're going to be able to start having a family. Oh my God, because I've worked on myself so much and everything, I've managed to find a good woman. Because I've worked on my good woman so much and with her and together, I now have good children. And then because I have good children, well, now I care a lot more about my community, perhaps, even though you should care anyways. Now I'm enabled, I'm going to start helping in that. Now I'm kind of too old. Well, all the efforts that you've put in, guess what? Your kids saw that. And now they're there helping you. And that was one of the videos that I first came across you that I really respected. I see there that CL and that family right behind you to your right. And it's
everything to me.
It's something that's been all too forgotten. You just look at the state of how people are willing to just so quickly, even if they live doors down from their parents, to send them to a big building where they get forgotten about, you know?
Yeah. And when people hear me talk about family, when I talk about family, like I say, in my own, if you want to talk about that in my own personal family, or if you want to talk about it in terms of the fact that we live in Canada and we're called an extended family, well, I would do the exact thing. Matter of fact, I'm completely consistent in how I raise my children as how I want to tell and talk to my Canadian people. I want them to be personally responsible. I want them to hold themselves to a particular. I did that for my sons, right? It would have been an easy thing just to just cater a coddle to them. But like you even alluded to earlier, no, a little bit of struggle is good. It gives them that sniff, that taste of this is what it is. Every time you achieve something, and if you've done that on your own, that gives you a really good, healthy self-esteem. And maybe that'll cause you to step outside your own comfort zone and do something that might be great, not just for yourself, but the entire world might be able to take advantage of. So that's what I want to do, not just for my family and for my children, but for all the Canadian people. So when I'm saying things that they hear and it might disturb them, it's like, oh, how dare you insult people? I'm doing that for your own good. I would do that for my own children. And I would want, and when I was being raised, I'm very thankful. I've said this so many times in the past. There are a lot of things that my parents might have failed at in ways, but the times that they didn't fail me was when they told me to stand on my own 2 feet and learn to strive for any and achieve any amount of success based on what I provide, not what they provide to me. Because if I'm relying on what they provide to me, I'm just basically a sacrificial lamb to everyone else. Like I'm never going to have any self-esteem. To me, the best tools they ever give me was say, here, do this on your own and see how that works out for you. You're going to fail and you might succeed, but at the very least, at the end of the day, if you failed, well, then hold yourself to account and strive to do better. If you say, oh, this was a good methodology. I'm obviously must have done something right, and build and expand upon that. And that has actually been beneficial to me and has paid off dividends throughout the entire course of my whole life. Now, I want my kids to learn that, and they have learned that. That's why I have 2 sons that are out on their own and responsible and taking care of their own business. And I want to do that for the Canadian society. I don't want you to rest and rely on mysticism or these bullshit politicians are up there saying, well, if I just steal from this person to give to you, you'll be okay. Like I said, they're not helping you at all by saying that they're going to be, take care of you from cradle to grave. I want you to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. And really, that's what we should be doing today. And we live in a modern world that it's actually not as difficult to do that as you would think. I get there's a lot of bureaucracy that try to keep us down, but listen, if you go back 1,000 years ago, it was pretty difficult too, because there wasn't anybody like if you're sitting around in your little log cabin that you built or whatever, but whatever that structure or your sod cabin or whatever the hell you did, there was nobody that you could say, well, I'm really hungry and your belly's growling. You're like, nobody's going to take care of you. You had to learn. It's like, well, I got to feed myself, right? That's all I'm saying is I want everyone to realize that you still should adopt some kind of personal responsibility to feed yourself. And if you can use what you've attained to feed yourself, and there's extra in addition to, because all the productivity gains that we've achieved, then that means you have excess. Right? That's the beautiful thing about excess. And that's the thing about the socialists is they take advantage of in the modern world we live in is there's tons and tons of excess. So they skim that off the top. And what it is, most of us that are just decent, moral, compassionate human beings, like they could even think about it. We live in a world where they could take half your income and most Canadians still don't complain. Why? Because they have enough based on all that productivity, all that innovation, all that entrepreneurship, all that creativity that's been drummed up under capitalism. You still benefit yourself so much based on that you're willing to allow someone to take half your income and still feel happy about it. So I'm saying, like, rather than that person that's stealing half your income, how about if you're that productive and you've achieved that much success in your personal life? Matter of fact, I would trust you better to be the ultimate decider and determinant factor in where that wealth gets distributed, because I'm pretty sure you'll make sure it goes in the right places. Whereas if you just put it in the hands of some central planner, I don't know where that's going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about it is that this group of people who want this big government, these perhaps communist, socialist, central planner types, heavy leftists, and even perhaps, heavy conservatives, they might view that excess that individuals have been saving as just that, excess. They're labeling it that. That is not what the individual labeled it at. I can tell you that. He labeled it as, that's my mortgage, that's my roof repair, that's my future. It's his profit, it's his security, it's his future. He's been making plans his whole life because there's nothing more important to a man than his own life. And so these central planners are saying, nah. You think you need that $15,000 that you've been eating KD for 2 months to try and save up. But we've got a better plan for it. How about we send it off in a tweet to America or to the UN? It's outlandish. It's absolutely outlandish. And not every individual is going to be good with their money. We look at the Canadian debt ratio, but they're that way because they're not handling their money, because they've been abdicating it their whole lives. Yes, they're going to make some mistakes if they start taking more personal responsibility initially, until they learn, and then they're going to be so much more empowered. We need to realize how powerful the individual is, especially in social media. When you can develop your own presence, your own perspective, you can do so much more than you thought. And you might not even see it within your lifetime. The waves could be rippling for years and years before they hit the shores.
Yeah, I'm just reading the comments there. Sorry, man. It's like,
no worries.
I just seen someone comment there as we refuse to get rid of cancer. What? I don't know what the hell that is, but anyway, let's scroll past that stuff. But like I say, I'm just trying to see what's going on in the chat. This morning,
everyone in the chat, thank you to everybody who's listening along. I know for a Monday, at this time of day, this might not be prime time. So for whatever audience is here, it's amazing. And you know what? To all those that'll watch this after, go through Canadian Libertarian Bennett Hunter's here stuff. He is a very fascinating and informed man, and I've been watching him for I believe 3 years now. I believe. So you know what, guys? Thank you for being a part of his audience. If you'd like to follow along with me, by golly, I'm a young man. I'll hopefully impress you with lots of things down the road with things I try and do for everyone. But this is an excellent opportunity to be speaking here with you today.
Yeah, no, I like to say, out of all the candidates that I've seen so far, and there's some really great ones that have been stopped up the plate. Like I say, you're someone that's got some future potential. But I guess my only thing I would suggest to you, and I'm not overly concerned as far as you go, but power does have a corrupting nature. So if you do achieve any amount of success, make sure you got people around you to keep you grounded. Because the only thing that's ever helped me most of my life, because there are times where you get yourself in a position where you kind of let some of those moral aspects kind of fall to the wayside, because there is a sniff of power that everyone likes to achieve it or attain some level of power. And what it is, because we live in a world where it's mostly about promoting power rather than cooperation and coexistence and peaceful interactions, is because we do live, or even historically in the animal kingdom, you're always going to want to strive to attain power. But to me, to be a modern human being means that the power struggle exists, but keep yourself grounded. And the only way that's going to happen, unless you're really, really, really disciplined yourself. And I mean, I consider myself to be a fairly disciplined person because I come from some structures in the past. What it is I've rejected the dogma, but I've never rejected the structure. Just like I was kind of alluding to early on when we started the stream, is I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I'll never reject Christianity. Like I say, there's so many beautiful aspects of the religion and the teachings that I was raised and adopted with. This, I don't want to throw them out, but I do want to eliminate as much of that dogma as humanly possible so that I have a mind that's still willing to think critically about issues. Because that, to me, is the most important thing. Because just like I've understood, and I'm a big fan of history, I think about all those areas and periods throughout history where people thought that they had the answers, right? I mean, prior to, Galileo, right? Everyone, like I said, and I mentioned this early on, everyone believed in a certain way and how the entire universe worked and how it functioned. Now, if you had been Galileo, which is basically, if you're talking about a libertarian today, you're your modern day Galileo figure today. Is you're trying to give people universal consistency, like some kind of scientific basis, although it's not as easy to do in terms of our social or economic engagements. That's not quite as easy, right? Because it's not as clear and concise as gravity per se. But what we're trying to do is say, listen, we're trying to use a proper formulation to get to a certain point in terms of our intellect or understanding what it is to be free human being. I'm saying, because I want to use that as my base premise, I need other people to be willing to adopt the principles of just like science. To me, it's like, well, I don't know where you want to combat things. You could be an evolutionary scientist, you could be a mathematician, but at the very least, I want to know that the structure that you're using, the underlying principles and the fundamentals that are using, has to be based in and grounded upon objective logic. You have, and universality and consistency. And things that have testable hypotheses. That's what the scientific vigor, that's what the scientific community is supposed to be about, is the vigor of testing hypotheses. To me, like I say, when I say that I don't want people to use force, coercion, or theft, well, I would say that most people, I'm not saying there aren't exceptions to the rule, but as a universally consistent message, I would say to most people, they don't want harm to be imposed upon them. And that's the premise that we're functioning on. Like I say, that's just a principle. How that expands out upon in terms of our economic or social interactions or how politics plays out, I don't know. I can never say that there's only one way that things are ever going to unfold. But at the very least, like I say, if I was trying to educate my children or if I'm trying to educate a Canadian citizen, is here's the base premises for what I deem is a universally consistent sense of morality. And let's just expand on that as best we can. We don't have to necessarily agree in how it's all going to unfold, but at the very least, we should all at least agree. I think most Canadians agree. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's many doors that you'll ever knock on, Matthew, where most of those Canadians, whether they're in Nova Scotia or anyone else, are going to say, oh, no, we should all use violence as our mean to an end.
Yeah, no, that
never said that, right?
You know what, though? More and more is what shocks me. I was talking to a bouncer outside, and I let him know that I was a candidate. And, I started to tell him that I really appreciated Martin Luther King. And he said, well, I appreciated Malcolm a bit more. And, sometimes I think at the end of the day is what he was saying, that, you've just got to use violence. You've got to ensure that change goes on. And I think that's acting impulsively. It's not productive by any means. I know a lot of people are frustrated saying, gosh, government can't change stuff fast enough. Well, if we're looking at the recent social change that we've seen the Liberal government push down, I don't think that fast change societally is necessarily a good thing. I think that we need to take things one step at a time and not necessarily leaps and bounds, because we could have neglected that we had jumped over something that's dangerous, right? So that's kind of where I come from. It's just to touch on something that you had said earlier as well, about wishing me well, but hopefully that the power doesn't get to my head. Well, I do appreciate that message. I think the power is a mirage of control,
right?
And humans, they have a conscious and unconscious desire to have control in their lives. So to maintain control is to keep your power into check, and to keep your power into check is to practice personal responsibility. Right. And so I think that's why, in part, it enables us candidates for the People's Party of Canada to do politics differently in a more open, communicative, and principled way.
Yeah. Well, I've kind of started alluding to this actually just in my last couple interviews I've had with a couple other PPC candidates. Is that's kind of my mentality, my psychology in terms of supporting the PPC is psychologically and in my brain understand that government is not the best means to an end, but like you were kind of alluding to, and where I've kind of placed myself mentally today in the state I am is, like you say, I don't, as much as I want to give people as much information as possible, as much truthful information based on what I think. And like I say, I test my own internal dialogue. So if it doesn't resonate, if it doesn't match up to be consistent, then I'll reject that myself. But even if I'm honest and forthright with people, which is what I do, I'm still one of those people, and I'll say this today, just like if you've alluded to, is we're not going to get the point. I don't ever expect that in a month, 37 million Canadians are going to reject the dogma of statism. No. People believe in that. They've been indoctrinated and inundated with that information for the plethora of their entire livelihood, for the most part. Like basically from the time they were little children and could understand, most of them have been taught to think that the state is the new authority. But to me, I don't want to just, like I say, I don't want to try to do the transition or the revolution where we just try to destroy what's happening today and try to rebuild anew. No. Let's be reasonable in our approach. Let's use some, just like today, renovations rather than tear down the entire house. How about we just get rid of the bad parts, right? The parts that are rotten. If the roof's starting to cave in on the other side, well, let's get rid of that because that's a definite potential threat. But we have to tear down the entire structure, folks.
No, when I got some stains on the inside of my bathroom throne there, I don't take a sledgehammer to it.
Right. So we can't destroy it. Well, I mean, the ones that have done that in the past, they might have had a short time frame that worked where it was just disarray and just, and that negative connotation in terms of anarchy, where there was actually, but that's not even the proper iteration of anarchy, because anarchy just means no rulers. It doesn't mean no rules. But when you break down any structure of society in terms of rules, then you are in a void where everyone doesn't feel like there are any rules. And if you get in that situation, good luck with that one. You don't want to live when that freaking situation is unfolding. So I'm saying actually the PPC is that ability for us as Canadians it's just that baby step, right? We're not having to try to get all the way up to the top of the steps in one freaking giant leap. We're going to take that step, and it's a great transition. It's a beautiful transition. It's not going to be that harmful. It's not going to be painful. I like the fact I've never heard anyone yet say, which I'm kind of pleased to hear. Usually you would hear the alarmists saying, if the PPC come to power, we won't have socialized health care in this country and everyone will be starving on the streets or dying on the streets with no help. No. As you know, the PPC, no one that represents the PPC is saying that we're going to eliminate any of these social safety nets or programs. No, but we do want to get the people in a healthy psychology and being more self-sustaining, more taking care of each other, more doing things on a voluntary level. And then we don't even have, matter of fact, I assure you, we don't even have to create legislation to, it might be a subsequent fact just to get rid of the old legislation. But people, like I say, once they learn and adopt, based on all the new technologies and all the ways that we can produce wealth and distribute it voluntarily in society, then we won't need these socialist systems anymore. I mean, there might be some point where you might want to put aside 5 or 10% of your income for those that are just that small percentage that there's just no way to help them in the private field, right? There are some people where we might just have to, whether it's called friendly societies or churches or just a voluntary organization based on blockchain technology, there are going to be areas that we're going to have to help people that really do need our help. But once again, we can transition to that time on a completely even keel in a way that it's not going to disrupt everything to the point where there's a lot of people that are going to, like the old people are like, and I'm not seeing it, no panicking from the old people. They're saying, if you PPC come to power, I'm not going to be able to get my.
Well, we know because we're going to balance things out for them. We're going to ensure that there is that future
interest at heart at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. They might think that we're cold or something, but I'm telling you, there's so much compassion within the PPC. It's outrageous. So there's a lot of big hearts, but I think a lot of big brains too, and they realize that thinking past their first perhaps initial emotional feelings on the situation, they said, I'm going to actually take time to look into this because I want to be able to help. And then those same people have been helping by doing just what you're doing and talking about these ideas, talking about the importance of the individual and how by sacrificing that, everyone in the group loses out. It does not help a single person when we start to lose those. So it's a time to stand. And for those people out there that are thinking, you know what, I really respect that they're doing this, but it's not their time. I would argue with you, you know what? No, I think it is the time, and I think it's your time as well to start actually putting your vote where you believe that it will actually reflect what your values are, not what your strategy might be. Because as much as you think you're playing a part of this big communal strategy game, you're not.
No.
You're not. You know, Andrew Scheer's not even winning regardless. So vote on your principles. If you're in a particular riding, that, you know what, it's 50% or whatever. I'm not going to judge people perhaps in those situations. You're going to do what you're going to do. In fact, I'm not going to judge people, period. I couldn't care less if nobody from this conversation voted for the People's Party of Canada, so long as they felt, okay, well, at least I'm informed on it and I disagree now, right? You know what? So long as you came from a place of understanding. So.
Yep. Yeah, well, like I say, I'm always willing to engage in dialogue, and I've said this many times in the past. If you're someone that questions, what a libertarian or a classical liberal or a conservative, the people that are on this side of the battle in terms of properly articulating our thoughts to the minds of the masses is just interact and engage in dialogue. How else do you ever, if you just rely on what some media personality said what Maxime stands for, rather than asking what Maxime stands for himself, then you're not going to get a proper perspective. And then you're going to be, well, you're straw man. All you're doing is you got a straw man sitting beside you and you're arguing against that. No, that's a failure of your intellect. That's a failure in your pursuit. If you genuinely want to know what other people think, talk to those people. Like I say, I've put myself out there for the last year and a half and offered this opportunity for a lot of people that I think they're just confused, but they seem to be unwilling to step outside their echo chambers, because I feel what it is at the end of the day, these people that are on that, well, even the right wingers, but I'd say mostly those that come from the left side of it, is they're so scared that if they step outside of their tribe, that their tribe will beat them down for doing so. Well, to me, what I would say to that person, if they were standing from me or look me in the camera, would be like, well, what kind of people have you surrounded yourself with? What kind of people would do that to you? That's
justified to have that fear, because they're seeing it time and time again from more and more of their friends waking up and then all of a sudden being just crucified. So for me, what I would say to people is I would extend a little bit of an experiment to you. Test this out on your own. And this is, I think, especially important for undecided voters or voters who have never taken the extra step beyond voting to help out with a party. So message each one of the parties in your area. Say, hey, I would like to volunteer. See, 1, how fast each one of the responses are. And then 2, see the enthusiasm. I can tell you this, when you become a member of the People's Party of Canada, you become a member of the family of People's Party of Canada. And that is the experience that I've been told from countless people who have joined from the Conservatives, who have said, listen, I've been to their conventions and stuff. Everyone's hushing you. They're shushing you. Oh, you can't say that. We can't bring that up. Just sit there and be told what to think. And that's not the case here. There's lively internal debates. There's caring and compassion and understanding and you know what, policies that are brought up from within. We look at the latest with the veterans policy. 44 different members within our executive and candidates are former veterans, and they got together and they made the policy. This is not a party of one with Maxime Bernier dictating to people. It couldn't be further from the truth. Maxime Bernier would never be a dictator. He is somebody who has always said what his ideas were. You can look to any video of him while he's in Parliament doing just this, and he'll look around to everyone and say, what? No, nobody else agrees.
Yeah.
You know, he's not saying it in a bad way. He's saying, this is what my beliefs are. And he's consistently getting silenced. And I think that it's about damn time we let Max speak.
Yeah. And the sheer fact that Maxime Bernier has even described himself as being libertarian lean in his politics or his philosophy in life, which tells me that, yeah, if you're willing to adopt libertarianism or accept libertarianism to the party, you know damn well you can't be that much of an authoritarian, because
looks at the individual, there's no doubt about it, right?
Libertarians, and this has been used so many times in the past, is like trying to herd cats, right?
Yeah.
We're very decentralized. We have our own individual mind. So the fact that he's willing to adopt and accept libertarians into the party tells me that this is, man, he's not trying to be authoritarian. Because if you're trying to be an authoritarian, well, look at the rest of the parties. How many libertarians are they bringing into their fold, right?
Yeah. No, and that's just it. It's something else I'm noticing actually within the party is that there's not too many people if any, that are really coming into it with this agenda. You
No.
know, I really want to represent the peoples that are around me. I want the people who have felt uncomfortable, my friends and neighbors, to have a voice and let me be the medium and the conduit for that. Whether I necessarily 100% agree or not, the voice needs to be projected to the people's ears who can make change. And too many politicians are far too afraid to reiterate what they are all hearing from the people of dissatisfaction, of being told that there's no Canadian identity, that that their culture is impotent and needs to be forgotten about, any relics or history gone. It's just absolutely sad, because when I grew up and I listened to O Canada, I got an entirely different message out of it. So I don't know how so many people in their school assemblies have gone so far left now. It's fine that we have left-leaning people. I think that too many of them aren't left-leaning people, but they're stationed there. And that's what the problem is. And I think that the pendulum of those centrist type voters or the undecided voters need to start coming to their senses and perhaps realize that the pendulum needs to start swinging a bit more to the right, because it's going so far left, we're about to strike the wall.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only way the Enlightenment era properly unfolded and how you ended up with a country such as the United States, and even, subsequent to that, a country such as Canada, is by sheer fact that there wasn't a one size fits all. It was people that are conservatives and liberals, classical in this sense, decided that, okay, there is no such thing. We're not going to, if we're going to have anything that's remotely resembling what they call a democracy, where we can, live amongst each other, argue about the semantics, but at the very least, respect each other's sovereignty to a certain degree. That was the whole point of the Constitution, right? Is let's at least set up some rules and some parameters for our engagement. And that was the thing that created the most freedom for the last couple hundred years. Today, though, the people that you're talking about, I don't even like to give them those labels, because I think they failed. Like, I would never even call Trudeau a liberal. Because actually, historically, a liberal from the classical sense, if you understand what liberalism means, I have so much in common, other than some areas of economics. But even then, hey, Adam Smith identified as a liberal, and Adam Smith was a free market. He was the founding father of modern economics, and under the English common sense of understanding of economics, the classical school. So to me, I would still have a lot of agreement with someone that would identify properly as a liberal today. The problem is today, it's all about misdirection in terms of the marketing scheme. So now the liberals call themselves liberals, but in reality, they sound very much like authoritarian collectivists. The same goes through, which is why people say the libcon bird when you're talking about Andrew Scheer and the way they present their form of conservatism. Still sounds very about top-down approaches, about authoritarian collectivism. Either you align with the tribe, right? That's what they're basically saying. Forget about the ideas. It's about aligning with the tribe or what's popular. No. If you have to have if you're going to have principles or ethics or morality based or baked in the cake in the ways of your governance or your social or economic interactions, is you have to hold those as your most ideal principles. The leftists today, or the right-wingers, the collectivists, they're not holding the ideas of individual sovereignty. So if they're not holding the ideal of individual sovereignty, then they're not genuinely like what you would consider a classical liberal or a genuine conservative based on the historical precedent of what used to be under English or even French, I would say, as terms of what we understand should be a conservative. What it is predominantly historically, conservatives were more concerned about their economic prosperity and the freedoms. Liberals were more predominantly focused on the social aspect. But at the end of the day, because they both recognized that the most important thing they were trying to achieve was some level of success in terms of freedoms on either of those planes. So to them, I guess that's why they realized that, well, we can bring this together, post-Enlightenment era, use those beautiful principles that Christianity brought the equation, and free market capitalism, which means we don't have a top-down structure. It's just people interacting and engaging economically. And that's why that worked. And it was seamless. It was almost seamless. There was political bickering. There was back and forth. There was fighting. There was, should we do things this way? Should we do? But at the end of the day, a classical libertarian or a classical conservative or a classical liberal, both of them had that very central focus in respecting the individual. That's not what you're seeing there today. And the further and further these modern parties that represent the left and right side of the political, the further and further they drift away from respecting the sovereignty of the individual, then that's all I'm saying at the end of the day. Is just, who cares what the label they call themselves? They're not respecting each other's sovereignty. And, we are all individuals other than the co-joined twins. And I've said in the past too, this is an excuse for anyone to say, oh, Bennett hates co-joined twins. No, I want them to have the same kind of freedom as the individual does as well. But like I say, that's if we actually acknowledge that's if the very underlying principle and premise of our freedom is the fact that we respect each other's sovereignty, then that's the area we can all engage in the octagon of ideas. And matter of fact, there's not going to be a whole lot of battling take place. There's not going to be a blood royale. There'll be some really good intellectual vigor that'll take place. And at the end of the day, as long as we respect the discourse and walk away and try to achieve a level of freedom for the sovereign to the individual, and no matter how we get to that point, we're all going to walk away benefiting each other. But if we play the collective game, if we play identity politics, if we play groupthink, if we play the tribalism game, well, that's just team sports now. And now you're sacrificing a whole lot of really, really good people under that pretense. And I don't want to play that game.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. The group thinkers, they just think that your self-interests and your desires are deemed wrong or dangerous. And so they would have you change yourself for the better of society. And if you won't change yourself, they will force that, whether that's to either silence, imprison, or something else, when this is taken to its very logical ends, right? So it's not helping the group. When you tell one person, you got to change so everybody else feels better, then the precedence has been set that they can keep going around to everybody and just get them to change. And you're not going to get people to change. If we could get people to change that easy, well, politics would be a heck of a lot more of an easy game to be at. But it's not. It's like we talked about earlier. It's planting seeds, and it's about teaching people how to think, not what to think. And so it's a victory to me at the end of the day. Like I said, if I finish this conversation and people said, well, I'm either going to or not going to vote for him, it doesn't matter. I at least know where they're coming from now. That's a huge victory, because I've shown what I think are good principled values to have of openness, honesty. And that's what we need to be sharing as us candidates and People's Party members and supporters, especially during these first 4 to 8 years, is because we're a new party. And so we need to build trust, and trust takes time. And so it's great to see so much of the initial enthusiasm, but I have no doubt that as we continue to lead and speak about these issues, more and more people will follow along, and they will understand and have respect back into the political process. Yes, I'm disenfranchised by it, but I also think it's a dangerous thing to give up on it entirely. If you want to make change, you get involved from the inside and you change it to the best of your abilities.
Yeah, well, like I said, even if I don't necessarily agree with the whole thing with you, is to me, it's like I can't be the ultimate decider of anything. Nor would I ever expect to be. That's that allowing people to do their own individual approach. I've even said this to people that are like that promote collectivism in terms of socialism or communism. I don't even want to cause harm to these people. I think it's a terrible endeavor, to sacrifice your individuality, your sovereignty, and look at yourself as nothing more than a sacrificial lamb to what you perceive as the great. Listen, but if you want to do that, I'm not even saying that I should have any ability to deny you that. Matter of fact, socialists and communists, do your thing. But the difference is the key area, the big thing here that divides us in fundamentals, in principles, in morality, is that you don't get to force me to participate in your endeavor. That's all. You do your thing. And you know what? If your experiment proves to be beneficial to you or the people that surround themselves that are like you, and you all prefer to just do that forced, well, then hey, if everyone that's in your community likes doing it that way and they're entering into that equation voluntary, who am I to say that you shouldn't do that? I should never have any pretense. The problem is we live under the modern form of government we live in is a one-size-fits-all approach for everybody, which that's never work. It's never worked. That's why we're in the modern world we live today, where there's all this division and all this fighting, is because we can't function under one-size-fits-all approach. The only one-size approach that we can actually function under is principles that are universal and consistent, right? So if I want to line up, if I go to the track and field, and I want to race around a track, I just want to make sure that the rules are set up that no one has any automatic advantage over me. Now, I'm going to have to make sure I've done the right thing to put myself in a position where I'll at least be competitive in that race. But at the end of the day, if all I really care about is just run around that track and I don't really care whether I won or lost, as long as someone's willing to allow me to enter into that particular equation, I've done the parameters I've set up or whatever structure and environment they had, and I met those parameters, then I'll be allowed to participate. If I haven't met those requirements, but that's the thing, that requires that I have to hold myself to a standard based on the requirements of the social or economic interactions or the physical interactions. So to me, like I say, on all planes, no matter it's psychologically or in physical capacities or economic transactions or interactions, is as long as it's done under the voluntary means and everyone understands that there's no such thing. We're not all going to finish at the finish line at the same time. Matter of fact, nor would I want it to be that way, because the people, if I didn't finish that race, because I was slower than the next person, well, the best way for me to become more efficient or more competent in that endeavor is me to raise and elevate my own success. Maybe more exercise. If the only way I could ever achieve or attain any amount of success in comparative contrast that the person that could win that race 5 seconds ahead of me is by giving them a 5-second penalty, right? Then how has that actually benefited me? Actually, it hasn't benefited me at all in terms of creating me to be a better person or have more prospects or more potential in the future. All you've done is handicap the other person. And I don't want to live in a world where I'm only constantly handicapping the other person.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. It's like when I play pool, if I aim, I lost you there, I think.
No, we're still here. I'm still here.
Okay. But yeah, when I play pool, if I've got, a ball in and I didn't aim for that pocket, well, I'm going to give up the shot. I'm not necessarily going to make other people abide by that, but by doing that enough times, people see, oh, he's getting better. Yeah. I should start doing that, and that's what it is. You can't.
Well, you know what? I'm just going to reply to that one, Matt, because actually I played pool many times in my life. I love pool, big fan of. Actually, matter of fact, when I was younger in my teen years, Millie's Billiards in Scarborough was a great little place, and I even had one of those ones where you screw them all together. Thought I was real cool. All right, but you know what? Even the people that wanted to play fluke, right? Like, and that's what we used to call it back then, where it's just whatever shot you get in, it was okay. Well, as long as we've set up the rules and we're all functioning under the same rules, okay, I'll even play that game with you. Yeah. Like you say, but if we're setting it up in a proper, competitive environment where it's not shots, right? Yeah. If I actually have to call my shot, 7 ball in the corner pocket or the right corner pocket, then yes, then the rules have been set up. And once again, then I can play that game because we already understand the rules. But if people just want to play fluke shots, okay, you can do that if you want. But at the end of the day, we're not going to be walking away from that tournament and say, oh, look at how good he was. No, you'll know at the very end, man, that was a lucky shot, wasn't it? You see how that bounced off all those corners? You didn't plan that, but it's like, okay, it was luck. So we're not, at least even in engaging in that scenario, we're going to walk away with, at least with the good, healthy psychology is, ooh, you got lucky there. That's, to me, let's get our brains in the proper way of thinking about things. If we're going to interact and engage each other and hold each other to account or responsible interactions, then you got to play that game where I get to call the shots, right? But if you just want to play a game of chance, well, that's some of you might want to do that. And if you do want to do that, as long as you enter into that equation voluntarily, then you do that, right? You might win, you might lose, but at least you've done that voluntarily. And you'll understand that, well, it's up in the air. Just like if you go buy a lottery ticket, most of the time you go buy that lottery ticket, the only thing that's going to happen the next day is fuck, right? You might want in a gazillion chance, you might get lucky and win, but we're never going to say if that guy that won the lottery say, wow, he was strategic. Well, that's one hell of a smart dude, right? It's like, no, he just the same numbers for fucking 20 years straight.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. We need to have rules for official play, for society to work and to move forwards. We don't need to have too many to the point where people can't figure out the game. It needs to be keep it simple, stupid, that KISS method. Absolutely. But I think that we also can have a little bit of scrims here in life where, like I say, with my attitude of, this is how I want to live my own life. And if you don't want to, if you want every ball that you put in, regardless if you aimed for it or not, in pool example, then that's absolutely fine, right? In those certain contexts, because people aren't going to be perfect. We can't expect everybody to abide by those things. So I think that having those real world just kind of scrims where we can allow people to kind of make mistakes and to live and learn is also important there. But once we start actually getting into the workforce and we start, doing things, that's why we got to play by the rules here. We might have different views about government, but look, I got to get involved to change it. So we understand what those certain rules are. And we have certain rules in life in Canada here, like don't steal people's things, private property, don't hurt women, equality and everything there. So those kind of rules are absolute. And we need to maintain them. But I don't think that we should be creating more and more rules, such as rules of what you can and cannot say. That has no place at all. That when I see comedian Mike Ward being fined 41,000, he was fined 82,000. But by the time he was done, 41, he had to pay. For a bad joke, but something offensive. And how many people now are having their lives ruined in front of this kangaroo court, human rights tribunals, as opposed to going through our proper legislative means, and the legal system there. And so,
and I mean, think of it. If you're the judge in that case, you're going to look at a comedian and when you're pulling up, before the courts, is like, you understand that this man is a comedian, and you're going to sit there up there on that fucking big, gigantic pulpit that you're sitting on. You're going to literally condemn this man for being nothing more than a comedian. Like that to me, that's a disgusting scenario that I've seen. And like you say, because to look at that man, and if you listen to the way he reacted and responded to how he was treated, you can tell this isn't a guy. What do you think? He's a maniacal. Oh, he just has a hate on for disabled people, right?
No,
he just goes around trying to fuck up. No, that was not he's
a comedian whose genre is offense comedy. He recently posted one about there. Yes. We have the freedom to be able to go in and to view these things. If you're an audience member and you're going to one of these blue or black comedy shows, don't go posting to social media to a whole bunch of people who didn't pay or were interested in that stuff to air your complaints about it, because it's none of their business. It was a private event for people that felt comfortable to push, like everyone should be free to do their own thing. I disagree vehemently with communism, but there's a Communist Party of Canada, and that is absolutely fine. And you know what? If they got enough support, that they could be doing kind of what we're doing, then they should be a part of the debate all the same. That's the uncomfortable thing about our party, is I really have to advocate everybody, even the people that are calling me a racist or a bigot or whatever, without any kind of factual evidence. And it's a challenge, but like we said earlier, the more uncomfortable, sometimes it makes me feel like perhaps this is the more right that I need to be doing.
Yeah. I just was reading this Sully's comment that was popped up there. Max being on Rogan. Actually, he was on Dave Rubin. I don't know if anyone that's in the chat, most of you that are in the chat, I'm sure you already, actually got to respond to you. So I'll put this up there. But Joe Rogan would be a great way as far as getting Maxine. But if you not realize,
yes, Gato is right there. Sorry about that.
But he was actually on Dave Rubin's, which he's a popular American YouTuber as well. So if you haven't already checked that out, just go to Dave Rubin YouTube channel. Just type in Dave Rubin, and then go to his videos and search Maxine Bernier. Dave Rubin brought him on, so it'd be cool even to see Joe or Toe. I like the comment.
Yeah. I'd like to interject here just for 1 second, if that's all right. Just that is up there. I agree entirely with what Gatto says there. When I had said that, don't hurt women is representative of equality. Well, of course, that the equal phrasing of it would be don't hurt men or women. Right. This is just telling that within our culture, it's made expressly clear that yes, you don't hurt either people. But we really do respect women. And in other places in the world, that isn't the case. So that was kind of where I had brought that up with. I agree that we should not hurt men or women. We should not be using violence by any means. I would say, I said earlier about how I support the Communist Party's ability to be able to vocalize their beliefs. Once it comes to the point where they start saying, though, that no, we're going to have to use violence, or some of their extreme supporters from any of the parties start advocating for that, because you will find some small niche of angry, ignorant, uninformed people advocating for that. Yeah. You know what? Those people are probably suffering quite a bit in their own lives and have quite a bit of resentment and different other things. So
historically, especially in the West, why we have this mentality as men, and I'm glad Gato's bringing this to the equation, because why men have this dominant understanding in terms of don't use your physical prowess towards women is because we understand, not just historically, even today,
Yeah.
Most men have the physical capacity to dominate men. That's just a reality. That's just a reflection of biology. I didn't choose to make it that way. That's just the way things unfolded biologically, how nature has created us. But at the same time, just as much I would say to a man, don't use your physical prowess. And I'll always acknowledge, there's always that chick that can kick her boyfriend's ass. That does exist. That outliers a reality. But as a generalized statement, most men have a physical dominant position over their women. I'm saying, just like I would tell a man, don't use your physical stature to impose your will on your lady. We'll also say to the women, I've had to say this to my wife in the past, don't use your amazing capacity to use emotions, right?
Yeah.
To manipulate my mind, because let's just admit it, folks, just as much as men have amazing physical prowess in comparison to women, well, women have it's not that they're weak. That's the other thing. It's like, God, all these fucking feminists, you're like, really, to me, and my wife acknowledges this too, feminists are the ones that are saying that women are terrible as far as I'm concerned, because they're not recognizing and acknowledging the power that women have. And we all know this. We all know this. You could have fucking 20 like big brutish fucking guys, right? And they can't all drinking beer and fucking smoke and drink. And some super hot chicks walk by, they all melt like as if like, what the fuck happened? I thought these were all, look at all these tough dudes. They're all like right? No, but like women have a lot of power too, folks. What it is our power just comes from a different area, right? We have dominance and we have strength in different areas. That's all. So I'm saying, just like I would say to a man, I'm saying, just like I would say to a man, don't use your physical prowess against a woman just because she might be weaker to you in the physical sense. But I would also equally say to women, stop using your power of manipulation and your sexual appeal to manipulate so many men. I like I say, we both have power at our disposal. I'm saying keep it at bay.
Yeah.
As best you can. Keep it whole. Right?
We're all going to have a strength in one way or the other.
Right.
You can't use that for improper things. We all have some touch to the force, let's say. Let's get into Jedi stuff here, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's, you're able to use your mind to do Jedi mind tricks, or you have great physical skills and you're able to use a lightsaber to block all the things coming at you. As soon as you start to put on the Sith mask and start going with the Galactic Empire and looking to blow up planets that don't follow your orthodoxy, well, then I got a problem. So,
yeah. No, it's exactly. It's so true. Yes, that's the thing. Nature did a pretty decent job of making sure that neither side of the when you're talking about genders or sex is neither side has that much dominance. And even
it's averages, right? So there's going to be on average more bigger men,
right?
But of those bigger men, there's also going to be averages of less likely, but there's going to be some men who are what they call big teddy bears. They have this huge body. They don't fight. They're the most kind-hearted people. Yet they are, by social standards, when everyone's standing around them and something's going down, everyone's head tilts to them to act. Right? Similar to women, some people have that amazing social skill or whatever. They might not like using it, and they might not like using it for everyone. But in a group setting, everyone's going to look at that woman who has that skill, or people perceive that she has that skill of empathy when she might not. She might be one of the most cold women in the world and working as a CEO, which is great. We need those too. Yeah. So, you find out what the individual is. You say there's a good chance that they're this, but they might not be. So you always want to find out.
Exactly. Well said. Like I say, let me just check on Gato's response on this one. So, True Bennett, no one should manipulate anyone. Agree. Young men are easily manipulated by women if they have no paternal influence in their life. It is worse. Well, I mean, that would have to do with, like I say, paternal influence depend on if you were, I know myself, I was raised by, because my mom and dad got divorced when I was real young. I was 8 years old at the time. And because in my family, both on my mother and father's side, a lot of aunts, my grandma, my mom. So I had a lot of female influence in my life, but I'm very appreciative to have that because I also had some strong male role models in my life too. So I got to see that difference and the discrepancy, but I did also acknowledge it like even, what Matthew suggested or alluding to is, that's not a one size fits all. Like I said, I know actually there's some aunts I've had in my life that they're stronger than some of the physically even than some of the male counterparts. And so to me, it isn't. There are outliers and there are exceptions to the rule, and we should never generalize things to the point where, especially if you're going to have anything in terms of social or policy, that we have to allow that ability, even if it's just a minority of one. That's the beautiful thing about respecting people as an individual is if you base your laws and your premises based on individual sovereignty, then you can leave that exception and they'll still gain the benefits. The problem is today that we're not using the laws or the structures of common law for solely just respecting each other's sovereignty. Now we're using it in the positive sense. So I was kind of alluding this with Kelly, I think it was yesterday, is there's a difference between positive rights and negative rights. Positive rights is to suggest that I have the pretense to use other people's resources for me. I should be able to force them. Like to say that I should have access to free healthcare is to suggest that a doctor or a nurse somehow should subjugate themselves to me. No, I don't have a right to that, but I do have a right not to have people use force, violence, coercion. That's something that can universally consistent. I don't have to enslave anyone economically or socially to have those kind of rights. That's what negative rights is. That's what the pretense of classical liberalism or libertarianism understood historically is negative rights, right? The only thing we have a genuine right to by sheer fact that we're supposed to be born as free human being is not to be infringed upon our rights by someone else to impose their mandates, their edicts on us. That's what I consider to be a proper pretense of freedom. Now, if there's positive things that you want to bring into the equation, I'm all with that. But once again, it has to function in a voluntary interaction. So when you're talking about healthcare, yes, of course, I think that everybody should have access to healthcare. Matter of fact, most doctors, or actually every doctor, actually not one doctor I don't think has ever practiced medicine in the West for at least the last few hundred years has never had to take the Hippocratic Oath. That if you show up in their hospital or in their bed, they're going to help you as best they can. That's what they're going to do. But at the other side of that equation, just because that person has the willingness and the morality to help you before any economic bargaining has taken place, at the very least, on the other side of that equation, you better show some appreciation for the fact that person, whether it's they saved your arm, your finger, or saved your goddamn life, then yes, you should reciprocate in kind and pay back in some way as best you can that person. Now, luckily, we have modern ways to do that where we don't have to just, go grow another whole garden and say, here, doc, if I give you enough, vegetables, will that take care of it? No, we have lots of ways to cover these things. And like I say, with modern blockchain technology, we can have all these amazing healthcare services provided to us on a voluntary means where we do get to hold each other to account. And those amazing doctors and nurses can be properly rewarded. Actually, one thing I'll say as a libertarian, there's probably a lot of doctors or nurses that aren't as competent as their peers or the counterparts, but they're being paid at the exact same pay level or pay grade. I want to reward the people that are more competent, the ones that are doing the job more, the ones that are putting in more hours, putting in more work, more effort, saving more people. I want to reward those people properly. I want the competent people to get the proper rewards and economic compensation that's deemed worthy to them. And that the only way that you can learn that out is by the price mechanism under the free market. But under our socialist system, a lot of these health professionals are being, so underfunded and not properly getting rewarded for all that hard work and effort that they put in.
Oh, in Nova Scotia here, especially, our doctors are paid the lowest. And so a lot of people will think, how are we going to bring doctors in? And the first thing that they start suggesting is, let's pay tax dollars to do a program. And it's some fluffy little thing that's, a couple little Bristol boards. And they go to a couple events where doctors are at, and they say, look at us, we have apples. It's beautiful here. Come here. It's just like, no, like these are doctors. They work by logic and ration. They're going to think, am I going to be able to start up a practice here? Am I going to be able to make money in order to be able to fund people? Or am I going to have to worry about the lights shutting off here and in my personal home? Am I going to be able to pay off all the debt that I've incurred? Am I going to be able to pay off the $50,000 insurance that I have to do for my private clinic twice a year? See, so many people don't realize that they're not just doctors, a lot of these people, they're entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like I say, I have a tremendous amount of respect for all these people who go in those professions, and thank goodness for them, because that's another area where, the division of labor is such a beautiful thing if you think about it. Right? We can't be, historically, we've tried to be everything at all times, but that's an impossibility.
Yeah.
The division of labor allows us to be more focused in our particular fields and ones that are more conducive what drives us, what our passions. And I'm glad to have these people, but I think some of the things that deteriorates those passions is the fact that they're not being properly acknowledged or rewarded for what they bring to the table. That's where the free market would do the best job. And like I said, rather than destroy our socialized healthcare system, what I like about what Maxime has brought to the table and what I think is the proper way to kind of transition away from this top-down socialized kind of system is let's introduce a private market. And you know what? not only will that benefit the people that have because some people say, oh, well, now all you're doing is giving all these rich people a place where they can go and get their healthcare services. Well, but that's good, don't you think? If you're one of those people that rely on the public healthcare system, well, the rich people that are now not waiting in the same lineup you are, that can go to the private clinics, guess what that's done for you? Now that line is shrunken. Now you are actually closer to the front of the line, and you can get, diagnosed. Maybe that cancer will actually get corrected, and they'll be able to beat that out of your body because you've been diagnosed quicker rather than waiting that fucking lineup for the next year, right? So
here's something else too.
Right, yeah,
if we put money in people's pockets, we enable them to be able to help. All right. So even if we had these extra options, which I've seen now, even in Newfoundland, there's a clinic that nurses can be in. You can pay the nurse. It's private, right? And so, yes, that's going to get a lot of people who have that wealth or the instantaneous need out of the system. But I think it also will be able to help people that don't have money. I would even suggest that somebody that has $0 has had a string of terrible things go on in their lives, including health concerns, would not be able to start a GoFundMe page or something like that and get support from their community, a community that has more money in their pockets to be able to target and expressly give it to that person. So now that person is feeling supported from their community. They're getting care immediately.
Yep.
And the private system or public system is still there and available for perhaps the other people who might not have a family or a social media following or those kind of means. But even those people, if they're within a good community that is investing in those type of things, they'll be able to drum up that. You'll have homeless shelters and you'll have women's shelters and you'll have all these people putting it to their Facebook. Look at this person who's a part of our community and they're suffering and we can do something about it. We don't have to go crying to the government to say, figure out all your healthcare stuff, then get us the money, then do this, then do that. We can do that. The individual is powerful. We need to empower them to allow them to speak more freely and to be able to spend more freely and to be able to purchase more freely.
Oh, man, that's so, you just preach to the choir here, buddy. I hear you. No, but totally. And that's why I really appreciate having you on the show today. And the fact that you are a PPC candidate in that riding in Nova Scotia of Kings-Hants. And like I say, if anyone that's in the stream today, if you are from that area, help Matt out as best you can. I know it's tough, and I get you're already inundated with a lot of things in our life. But you know what? Even if it means, maybe putting a couple of those half-hour sitcoms that you want to watch at night, maybe if you just put them off to the side, like I say, take a little bit of time out of your day and help Matt out, help anyone out that, like I say, it's not just Matt, but anyone out there that's not just members of the PPC or supporters, but anyone out there who cares about freedom, help support those people. Whether, like I say, even for myself, you don't have to necessarily donate money, but share my videos, like them, subscribe, whatever we can do to help each other. Because once again, the central planners, the authoritarians, well, they have access to, central bank, fiat currency, wealth redistribution. They have so much power at their disposal. We really have at the end of the day is our ideas. But our ideas are very powerful. But the only way that our powers get out there to the rest of the people is by you help to spread them. Right.
And I appreciate you saying that because we do need the help. We're a brand new party. I don't know. Some people might have tuned in later. They might not have heard that I don't have particularly that much amount of money. I decided to stand out of necessity. I was just going to do the communications role, but we couldn't get a candidate. And through enough talk, they said, you know what? I think we do have a candidate. We just need you to be acclaimed. And I said, well, if people want me to do this, then sure. I'm not going to seek for it because I don't like leaders that seek for it. Right. But any kind of help, and whether that's a $2 donation, whether that's a $200 donation, more importantly, probably what we need is, like you say, people that can action things. And so people that live in Kings-Hants, if you're interested in going door knocking with me, if you're able to do any of those things. And for people that are listening that don't necessarily live in my area, I've had a lot of people that said, we don't have, a particular candidate in this riding yet. We will have in all of them. How can I help you? Because I see you're doing your campaign. I can receive donations from people all across Canada, not from other places. So that can be as well. I can use IT support from all over, such as not necessarily IT, but computer editing, video editing. If you get clips of my YouTube and you want to make a Go Matthew Southall video out of it, I say all the power to you, man. I'll appreciate that. Put the word out on your Facebook. That kind of stuff really means a great deal to me. And I think the people that I appreciate the most for their support are the people who are close to me, who stand up to me. If they see somebody saying something bad that doesn't reflect me on my Facebook, the ones who will stand up and give a personal experience or some testimonial, that's really powerful. And that's very affirming for me to realize that, you know what, perhaps all these risks and dangers that I've put myself into are helping people. And I do appreciate that. And I've got a lot of plans in my life. And so if you want to follow along now, perhaps I'll keep you entertained. I've been through a lot. I've done a lot already. I've hitchhiked in every season. I've done stand-up comedy, and I've gotten on TV and paid for it. I've been through, addictions and back, and I've skydived, and I'm just somebody that likes to live. I'm a tester, like we talked about earlier. So, we're going to see if this experience helps me out as a 28-year-old. I feel like I am learning invaluable things that could potentially empower me into a long career with this, or some other way of talking to people and connecting with people and trying to bring unity. And like I said about having a lot of big plans, I guess we'll leave it here, letting you know a little bit about me with my future plans. So my goal has always been to raise a family. It's always been to get a job that pays well enough that I'll be able to support having more than 3 kids I'd like to have. We'll see what happens there. Nice. And to raise them in a proper way to enable them to help others. I think that, you know what, if you live a really good life and you help a whole bunch of people, that's awesome. But imagine raising 3 or 4 individuals that do that. That's just magnified it. And so once I've done that, that'll be the next challenge that, I'll be focused on in my life. And once the kids start to leave home, and once I get too old to be as active, I'd like to start establishing my retirement plans. And I grew up in an amazing house, but we had a bad patch where there was some fighting, and people would say within our neighborhood, you could hear us almost anywhere. So we're not perfect. We've lived and learned. Yep. But I had a particular Easter experience where we were being absolutely naughty, we'll say. And my grandmother was over. She came and said, you know what, Easter's canceled. My parents were like, yep. They all went off to church. We were left there. There was no eggs strewn around or hidden or anything. And, I learned a lesson because we were, inappropriate. But I went down to my friend's house. I ruined their whole Easter. They're basically crying on the couch as this poor mother's trying to hand out baskets to people. And they said, you know what, stick with us today. They took me out to a lake. And I've gone out to that lake, Aylesford Lake, countless times. And that's where I found my peace. And so my vision for the future is to establish a home for people that have issues within the family, whether that's a single mother, a single father, 2 parents together, 1 child, 1,000,000 children. I don't care. And I'd like to buy enough section of a lake that I can have a couple cottages and a main building where we'll provide food and hospitality and talks and fun experiences and camp ideas for kids. Yeah. And that's going to take a lot of money. And so this is where it all comes into. Maybe I have to be selfish to find myself a career or something that I can save and put away money to enable myself to give back everything that I was given. And that's all I'm trying to do, because I was given so much. I was given an amazing family, amazing health, even amazing hair. People will make fun of me for having that, but I'm gifted and I want to give that back. I get so much out of that. And I just know that so much of it is needed. I kind of follow an ikigai where I have, what my mission is, what my vocation is, what my skills are, and all that stuff. And I think that by combining all these different experiences that I have in my life, including politics, perhaps what people might say is that's a nice dream. I've been told when I tell people that. Well, maybe I make it a reality.
Right on, Matthew. Perfect. And you know what? I will say, in addition to all those other amazing attributes that you definitely possess, you got some pretty fine styling cues as well. Because I like the way that suit you had on when you were doing your interview and that conversation with that global reporter. It's like, yeah, that looks like it's almost like, I don't know, is that a fitted one? It looks like it was you're doing a great job in representing yourself, like I say, not just in how you articulate yourself, but even showing your style and grace. So good for you for doing that. And like I say, I'm probably going to tie this chat up here now because I don't keep you too long, but I really appreciate you coming on the channel, and not just for what you're doing in terms of the politics and bring yourself to the forefront and that, and try to educate and inform your fellow people, not just in your writing, but across Canada, but all you've done in the private sector. Like I said, you've climbed poles, you've done lots in your life, like I say, that has already shown that you're willing to do a lot to help out your fellow man and woman, not just to benefit yourself, but you're also by natural extension helping out your other fellow Canadians in many regards. So the fact that you're bringing that in the political realm and bringing your amazing ability and your confidence and your clear thinking mentality to the equation, like I say, I'm very respectful and appreciate to see you here. And to me, you're punching so far above your weight that even though you're only in your 20s, I'd match you up against someone, well, not just my age, but 10, 20 years my senior even. I'd match you up against any one of those people.
You put me up against the biggest heavyweight, all right? And they might leave victorious, but they're going to have a bruise, and they're going to have a big fight coming up, because I'm a match person. I don't get thrown off by a defeat. I get invigorated. So bring it on. That's where I learned the lessons, and that's where they burn the deepest.
Nice. And that's what you need, because obviously you're starting to realize now is politics is it's a fairly dirty game at times. So yeah, if you can bring your resolve and your confidence and your principles to the equation and counteract those that are just trying to get a paycheck, well, I think at the end of the day, like I say, I still have enough faith in most people. I'm not saying that everyone's going to automatically adopt this, but I think if you bring the right message, if you're firm in your convictions, principled in your stance, I think most Canadians, based on the history of most of the things that we've understood historically, I think they will gravitate and more align with what you have to say. Maybe they might not all be willing to vocalize that support, because just like what's happened down in the US is you got these media hacks and the political ruling class. They're trying to figure wag at anyone that dares to challenge the status quo. But like I say, don't worry about the polling numbers. Let me tell you, just like for Brexit or Trump, is wait till they get behind those booths, because that's when the rubber meets the road. Yeah, the polling shit that you're here today, that don't mean nothing other than what
a lot of people they got a saved face. They've been involved in the Conservative Party for a long time or whatever it is. Once they're behind that booth, they can let their principles shine. And I think that's the amazing thing about democracy. And people should be afraid of that silent minority, and people too often take them for granted, because they're some of the best people out there. They're silent. They're not complaining or putting any squeakiness out to society. They're going along with the flow. They're living their own life. And so that's why I think so many of them will really appreciate our message, because that is where we're coming from. We are amongst you. We are the ones who have finally stood to be able to do that uncomfortable task of letting that be known to everyone else.
Well said, Matthew. And you know what? I don't have to say another word. Matthew tied it up perfectly. Summed it up perfectly, Matt. Well job, my friend. I wish you all the best of success. And like I say, anytime and at any point in time going forward, if you ever want to reach out to me and help you in any way, I'm more than willing to not just bring you on the channel, but I'll help you in any way. And if I get a few bucks, matter of fact, right now I'm not doing so great, but I'm going to help even try to donate to your channel or to your writing, and try to help you in any way. Like I say, if I don't have a whole lot of money,
listen, what you're doing is donating right now. You don't realize how valuable this is. I've got 2 hours now that I can share with people of a great conversation. So awesome. Thank you very much. And I do look forward to many more conversations with you, and hopefully to get there in person. I know we were trying to make plans to do that in Moncton when I was going up to Gatineau. I guarantee I'll be there in a face-to-face with you.
Yep, and it'll be just tomato juice or orange juice or Coca-Cola Zero, because I know you're off the wagon, or what is it? On the wagon, off the wagon, whatever. So yeah, I won't try to entice you into having a drink. But
I'm a big fan of orange juice, so that's perfect.
Right on. We'll have an orange juice together, buddy. But anyways, you have yourself a great Monday. And like I say, thanks for everyone that showed up the stream. As you see, and look at this guy, another beautiful example of a PPC candidate that's stepping up the plate and showing that he's not just clear and concise in his message and his principle, but he's willing to stand firmly on them and not willing to back down. That's what we need, folks. That's leadership by example. And that's, like I say, that's what Max and Matthew is bringing to this equation. And I'm so happy to see that these both of these gentlemen are stepping up the plate and representing at least a couple right into this country. And I know that there's another 336 more that are going to step up the plate, and they've already shown to do so. And you've seen some of my videos in the past. I've already covered some of these gentlemen or ladies as well, and I'm going to cover a whole lot more going forward. But like I say, this whole movement today in terms of promoting individual freedom and liberty, it's happening. Whether the media wants to recognize it or the ruling establishment or not, it's going to happen whether they want to acknowledge it or not.
Yeah.
A libertarian, and I love liberty.